Welcome to our coverage of Stage 1 of the 2019 Absa Cape Epic. We're in the Overberg region, Walker Bay, and the beautiful village of Hermanus, which hosts Stage 1 of the 16th edition of the Untamed African Mountain Bike Race. It is a cloudy but warm day here for what is going to be a huge day for these riders as they made their way from Cape Town down to the Overberg region. It's a beautiful part of the world. The Hemel and Aarde Valley will be integral to today's stage of 112 kilometres as the riders leave Hermanus High School and head on an out and back loop, making their way through the valley and back to Hermanus High School. Hello and welcome to Hermanus High School, Stage 1 of the Absa Cape Epic after yesterday's prologue on the slopes of Table Mountain delivered some fantastic drama, great excitement, and the yellow jerseys on the backs of Scots Tram mountain bike racing. That is Nino Schurter and Lars Forster. In the women's race, a dominant performance by the defending champion Anneke Langvel and her new partner Anna van der Bregen of Investec Songo Specialized. They took the orange leaders jerseys. 2.5 minutes they have over Ariane Luthier and Maya Wostowska of Cross Spur Racing. Beautiful day here, a little bit cloudy, but a little bit of rain overnight as well, which I think the riders will thoroughly enjoy on this course today. Let me introduce my colleagues once more today. Alongside me, Robbie McEwen, a multiple stage winner on the various Grand Tours, Giro and Tour de France particularly, 12 each. Nice to see you here, Robbie.
Yeah, nice to be here. Really enjoying the event, and day one has delivered already. And I'm looking forward to seeing the teams out on these big open stages and seeing the real attacking starting.
Neil Gardner.
Well, we've seen the prologue, that's a short stage, 20 kilometers, and now the real action starts. Traditionally, stage 1 is a war of attrition. It's always a really hard day, probably due to the course, but also because it's a bit of a shock to the system. These guys have been training, they've been preparing for months, and now now the action starts. So we're keen to see what the difference is between the performances yesterday and tomorrow.
If yesterday was the bachelor's party, today's the wedding. But if you left the bachelor's party having overdone it, you're going to have the hangover. So those who took it easy yesterday and managed their efforts will have a really, really good day today, because it is a testing one. Now, let's have a look at the standings after the prologue yesterday on Table Mountain. 20k, 600 meters of climbing, and the times were fast, perhaps faster than we've ever seen in the 5 years that we've been on the slopes of Table Mountain, starting from UCT. It's a well-known course, that, and the riders really did put it out there yesterday. 43 minutes was the time to look to beat, and they certainly did so. Let's have a look at yesterday's prologue.
It's pretty cool to kick off the Cape Epic with a prologue in Cape Town. Iconic Table Mountain. It's also for us still something special, and I think a lot more for all these amateur teams coming in and racing around Table Mountain.
The prologue will be Anna's first day ever at the Cape Epic. We don't know how our level is in comparison to our competitors. We'll go out and ride as fast as we can, but on the other hand, we're not going to take like crazy chances. I know from experience that the prologue is important, but on the other hand, there's still 7 more days to go after that. So it's important to get a good start, but if we don't, it's not the end of the world. We have 7 days to work on that.
Yeah, and most of all, I'm super excited because it's the first time when I do Cape Epic, and I hope that this will help Ariane, who did it already 8 times, right? So for me, it's the first time, so I have maybe more like beginner's enthusiasm, and yeah, we can mix our feelings and take the best of it.
Yeah, the Cape Epic is unpredictable. It's a tough race. Last year the luck was definitely not on our side. Yeah, I know now both sides, and yeah, be prepared now really well to be ready for this year's and to turn it around again and have a successful race. Yeah.
Winners and losers we have on that day, of course, and Scherter and Foster were the winners on that day. Perhaps the big losers were Jaroslav Kulhavy and Sam Gaze. Alban Lecata and his partner Carl Platt lost copious amounts of time. Klangeni and Claw, the winners or the leaders on the Exaro PwC team of the Exaro category. Kulhavy and Gaze 1 minute and 50 back for the defending champion and his new partner Sam Gaze behind Scots Tram mountain bike racing. In the women's race, it was a dominant performance, really. 2 minutes and 35 seconds over a 20k time trial. But between second place Cross Spur Racing and down to Spitz and Reeder of Mirandal Vivas Rotfeld, not much time there either. So very, very tight racing for the podiums. Now, this is today's route, 112 kilometers, 2,700 meters of climbing. The blue is tar road, the single track is in green, and the blue, beg your pardon, farm road, very little tar road, and district road is the yellow. It's basically the Hemel and Aarde Valley, out and back. Neil Gardner, you've ridden this?
Yeah, we've done the course, and it won't disappoint. All we can say is the racing is all up to a man against man and team against team, but the course does play a major role in how the race will split up, and we're really expecting to see around about the 60 or 70 kilometer mark. Again, the law of attrition will start to play its role, and around about the water point, the solitaire water point, we expect things to really blow up around about there.
Right, yeah, the water points at 29, 43, 63, 83, 92. One's a hydration stop, and there is a dimension data hotspot there at about 35 kilometers, the top of the climb there at Kartkloof, or just not quite at the top, but there's a hotspot there for a bit of extra cash, which is always quite nice for the riders, Robbie.
Well, the riders will grab that if they possibly can. It's always good to spend on drinks and treats because, let's face it, they're burning so many calories out there on this race that you could use a treat or two during the week. But I see this as a stage really in two halves. Early on, there's plenty of hills, although it's a long way to go. But if people are suffering and the signs are there from yesterday, you can really put them to the sword already on stage one. And of course, that second half, there's ample opportunity to really then try and get away from the rest and attack if you're good enough. A
lot of newbies in this field, not only in the amateur, but of course in the professional side of it. Riders who are embarking on their first Absa Cape Epic, so it'll be interesting to see how they go on the first real marathon stage. By tradition, and the Absa Cape Epic, the first stage one is a very, very hard attritional stage, and today, as Neil Gardner said, won't disappoint. Now let's go to the start this morning. In the early hours of this morning, not quite that early actually. It was around about 7 o'clock this morning, which for some of the leading pros is a lot earlier than they normally start races, isn't it, Robbie?
Yeah, well, I was talking to some of the pros at dinner last night, and they said that is the real wake-up call, figuratively and literally here at the Cape Epic, is such early starts, being on the start line at 7 a.m. But, you know, when it does get hot down here in the Western Cape, it is a great time of day to start riding your bike.
Neil, that's one factor that perhaps is not going to be an issue. The last time we were here in 2017, heat was a pivotal factor, and in fact ended up in a stage being curtailed the day after. Not going to be an issue today, I don't think.
Well, we'll have to see. Sometime the weather in the Western Cape is highly variable, and it can be 4 seasons in one day. So we have to, as we always say, wait and see.
looking behind us here, I think it looks as though we'll be okay today. But yes, you don't really know what's going to happen because the riders are going to be out there up to 9-10 hours. So those at the back of the field will certainly feel the heat. So let's go to the start this morning. 7 o'clock it was at here at the Hermanus High School, and take a look and see the riders being called up. The top 10 in each of the men's and women's categories, and the jersey wearers get called up to the start line.
Good morning. We are in the beautiful seaside town of Hermanus. Today is stage 1. After yesterday's time trial, the riders are ready to cope the 111 kilometers and 2,700 meters of climbing. How are you feeling for today? What can we expect for this stage 1?
Yeah, I'm feeling really good. Had a good night. Yesterday was just the warm-up, so I'm looking forward now to start the proper race. Yeah, today everybody has some fresh legs. It's you just need to ride smart, try to spend as less energy as possible.
Yeah, I'm quite happy with it. You know, it's a long way until we get to Val de Vie, and so yeah, to get away safe is important. Obviously, the next 7 days is going to, tell rather than the one-off hour-long race.
What about today?
Yeah, we'll see. We both feel good, I think, and it's a long stage and lots of opportunities. So I guess it's about conserving and trying to figure out what's good, and yeah, we'll see how it goes.
So the thoughts of Sam Gaze there and Nino Schurter as they headed off here. The yellow jerseys on the shoulders of the Scots Tram pair of Lars Forster and Nino Schurter. This is the elite men's batch, and one thing, those of you who may have been following this Absa Cape Epic for many years, it's the 16th year, the speed of the start line has just got increasingly faster and faster, particularly with the cross-country guys. They really hammer it.
You could be forgiven for thinking you're just watching a normal 2-hour cross-country race. The way they take off, it's a full sprint off the line.
Let's hear from the leading women now.
Yeah, it's a proper start to the race. Yesterday was a nice little warm-up or a test, so to speak. The game only starts today. So yeah, it's going to be very different, but we're optimistic. It feels good, of course, going into a stage with a lead, so we'll see what happens out there.
I actually think they keep saying that every year, that there's a stage that is worse than ever, and then for us it's just another stage. Every stage at the Epic is hard, and it obviously depends on the race also, how hard everyone goes and those things. So yeah, but it is a very hard, it's some really steep climbs that are going to be very tough. So yeah, it's going to be a hard day.
As Jenny Sinnerhach there of Fairtree Silverback said, there's never an easy day on the Absa Cape Epic for these leading pros. Well, it's just another day in the saddle. This is the small women's elite batch going Team Summit. They had a good day yesterday. Adelaide Morat and Candice Lill went very nicely in 3rd place. And they roll away here. 2 minutes and 35 seconds is the lead for Investex Songo Specialised.
Oh, and they were ominous words spoken by race leader, well, one of the race leaders, of course, the team Specialised, Annika Langwald. She said yesterday the Prologue is just a test, but they won by 2.5 minutes.
Yeah.
So if that was just a test, then
the
rest are in a bit of trouble.
Yep, absolutely. Now we're going to images from slightly earlier this morning, and that's what we'll be doing each day. We'll be coming on air and then bringing you images from the early parts of the stages, and then joining the action as it gets closer to the business end of the race, the finish. They go up to La Viège there. They did rotary drive, of course, up to the beautiful mountains that overlook Walker Bay, which is where we are here in Hermanus. And that's the women's group, snaking away and down, turning down into this valley. Hemel and Aarde is very well known. Hemel and Aarde is the Afrikaans expression. In English it would be heaven and earth. And it is truly beautiful. The valley just nestled behind Hermanus, away from the coastline here. A wall of mountains protecting it from the weather on the Indian Ocean side.
well, it might be called heaven and earth, but I'm sure for some of the riders are going to be thinking it's hell on earth today, because it is a very tough stage. It's a 4-star or 4-chain ring stage out of 5. So there's going to be a whole lot of suffering going on today. So heaven, I don't think there'll be much talk of that.
So there we saw a little bit earlier Maja Wojtowska on the front for cross spur racing, and really Ariane Luthe and Wojtowska going to have to make a bit of the racing today. 2 minutes and 35 for Langveld and Van der Breggen. It's a day where they don't need to do too much just yet, just see how everyone else is going. They will perhaps react if they have to, but there's not a lot that they need to do with a 2 minute and 35 lead with a long week to go. Strauss and Steenenhoog on the front here, Neil.
Well, the onus is really on the contending teams to attack with a bit of a buffer, especially a buffer like 2 minutes 35. You can afford to ride a little bit defensively, certainly in the beginning part of the race. And we're talking about the approach of Investec Songo Specialized. Let's say that it's up to the others to attack them, but we also have to remember that 2.5 minutes is not a lot of time when it comes to punctures or crashes or something like that. So certainly towards the last half of the race, if Investec Songo Specialized are feeling good, they're going to drive home that advantage and try and take more time to give themselves an even bigger buffer.
First look at the men. This is Christian Hynek and Peter Veldhoek, his young partner, and they're on the front of the race already, the Canyon pair.
We were watching them yesterday pretty closely because it's an old and young team. We've got Hynek, who's 38 years old, and Veldhoek is 21, so we've got a bit of a disparity there, and something to learn for certainly for the youngster. But we were watching their performance, and they were 6th yesterday in the prologue, which is no mean feat. This is definitely a team to keep a very close watch on.
Brief look there at Bart Brenchens and his partner Abra Azevedo, and the leader in the Dimension Data Masters. As they go over the Dimension Data hotspot there, Nino Schurter last Forster up there. Look at Kulharvi out of the saddle there, not wanting to lose too much time behind the Scott boys.
They're already looking like they're under quite a lot of pressure, Kulharvi and Gaze, and we saw them lose 1 minute and 50 in the prologue yesterday, which is a huge chunk of time over just 20 kilometres. We did expect maybe Kulharvi to make a slightly slower start to the Cape Epic, as he did last year, losing just under a minute to the winners of the Prologue last year. But 1 minute 50 is a huge chunk, and I'm just getting the impression he is finding it difficult to ride himself in on this day one, even on that first climb to Cutkloof.
You know, sure to them, yep.
Well, the cross-country riders know exactly that. They'll have sensed they'll have smelt the blood in the water, and they'll know that he's perhaps a little bit on the back foot, and he'll get no sympathy from Avancini and in fact any of the teams. They're all going to try and drive the screw in as much as possible.
Look at this, is Foster and Schurter just getting beyond the cross spur, boys, to try and just make sure that they don't get too far behind that little attack on the front from the Canyon team. Now the bulls, this is a whole herd of bulls in here, and they had a terrible day yesterday, particularly, well, not all of them. Platt and Licata lost 3 minutes and 20 seconds yesterday, and they have an enormous amount of time to make up. It's still very early days in this event, but that's a long way to go.
It is, but the veteran Carl Platt, he really did look like he was struggling yesterday. He was often really with his head between his shoulders, head down, really trying to just stick on the wheel of Licata. And Licata looked quite good for mine. He looked really in control, but Platt, I think, was below par by his own standards yesterday, and they have a lot of work to do. You can see even last night's rainfall. Yeah. There's quite a lot out on the course, and they don't really need a lot of cooling off today. Maximum temperature forecast of just 23 degrees.
One of the teams, or two of the teams, in fact, that pop up every year, we have a team or two who pop up in the top 10. You say, oh, they look pretty useful. Where do they come from? And that's the 7C CBZ Villiers, pair of Louis Meyer and Johnny Catania, and their second team, Tony Longo and Gregory Brenes, 7C CBZ Villiers. A combination of Costa Ricans and Italians there. Only one of those four, they've all entered before, only one of them has finished the race before, Louis Meyer. But 4th place yesterday for Meyer and Catania, and 7th place for Longo and Brenes. They are 148 back, and we'll see them in the mix here as well. So look out for them as the women pass through the water point. Lil and her partner pass through, and Maja Wojtowska stopping to refuel.
Yeah, this is critical, the refueling during the stage, especially in the early parts where you can try to eat as much as you can, and they always say when you're eating, you've got to eat for tomorrow, not for today.
She's a cross-country specialist. Of course, she does do marathons, but mindful of the efforts, what's coming. So whilst Ariane Luti went ahead, Maya Rostovska not taking any risks and just saying, look, I'm going to take the opportunity to refuel here and get back on.
Yeah, one missed feed zone, and you can really be on the back foot for the rest of the week. It just sort of compounds, as I'm sure anyone who's ridden a long stage race will attest. Robbie will attest definitely that you've got to be super careful with your hydration and your nutrition. What is probably the case here is that Maya has been perhaps a bit overzealous. She's heard what the role that nutrition and hydration can play, so she's really spending a lot of time thinking about and very deliberately going to each water point and deliberately eating according to her schedule.
Well, it is critical, of course, the hydration, the nutrition throughout a long stage race like this and throughout each stage itself. But compared to road racing, the nutrition points, the hydration stations here in the Cape Epic are not only critical for your performance, but they're very tactical as well. Where you stop, where you don't stop. And I just noticed one team rode straight through.
Yeah.
We saw Maya stopping and getting filling up a water bottle, but another team just riding straight through it and choosing not to stop. And they can make up 30, 40, 50 seconds in that water point. But that can really come back and bite you later on. So it's a choice you've got to make at the time, depending on weather conditions, how you're feeling, how much you've taken with you to begin with. So I like the way they play quite a tactical role in the race.
Just to refresh those gaps, the Cadel Factory race, we haven't seen them yet, Fumic and Avancini, they started the day 41 seconds down on Scots Tram mountain bike. Cross Spur in third place, 52 seconds down. Then the CBZ Villiers #1 team were 1 minute and 7 seconds, and then down to Alan Hatley and Matt Beers, who lost probably just over a minute yesterday due to a puncture in the Prologue, 1:22 down. That's the top 5 there. And the women's Investec Songo Specialized 2:35, but then Cross Spur, Summit, Finn and Mirandal Vavis just under about 50 seconds between those 3 teams, second to 4th place there. So very much closer in that race.
A very dense field that we've got here. 2 minutes is absolutely nothing in this race. We've seen riders winning by over 10 minutes. So it's still anyone's game at the moment.
So this is the men's group, and you can see the man on the front there. They sort of drift onto that trail on the left-hand side there. Nino Shirt, I think it looked like the world champion stripes. He likes to be up there at the business end of the race. Look out for Avancini and Fumic. They have 41 seconds, and they traditionally over the years have been very strong in these first couple of days.
They've always been at the front, and Avancini just can't seem to help himself. He just loves to have his nose in the wind, and perhaps this year they'll have learnt a few tricks. Maybe hide a bit, stay out of the wind, stay out of trouble. But at the same time, the closer you are to the front, the better. Well, at the moment,
not yet. They haven't.
Yeah, we're talking about Avancini and Fumic here. They don't hide anywhere, anytime, on or off the bike. They're great personalities, great characters, yeah. And they went out today, in fact, wearing hydration packs, talking about hydration on the route, which suggests that they don't want to stop anywhere.
And I think that's a great idea. I mean, a lot of teams, these professionals say, oh, no, you don't wear a hydration pack. We're not amateurs here.
Doesn't look cool.
But if you can save 45 seconds at each water point, you can miss 1 or 2 by carrying a water pack. But you know, the trade-off is it might weigh in at 1.5 up to 2.5 kilos, depending on how many spares you're carrying, what size of bladder you're carrying in that water pack. But I think it's a great idea, and I think certainly you've got to put cool factor aside and look for efficiencies.
I think another point of the hydration packs is it weighs you down a little bit. You've got your center of gravity is raised, and the riders definitely don't like anything that will affect their handling and the way they handle their bikes.
I know the pros don't like anything extra weight, but the ones they took out there were the sleekest looking things I've ever seen, and really properly strapped on under the shoulders. So they're not taking any chances.
So look at it that way: a very sleek water pack. You might only have 1 bidon worth in it.
Perhaps
so
a kilo.
it might weigh in at 800, 900 grams. But you empty that, you drink that one early on, you miss the first water point, and that's where you go on the attack and build a lead and force the others to chase. So that's where these water points and how you set up your race and with your equipment and hydration, etc., all play a really big role in this race.
This is live footage, and that is Enrique Avancini, I think, on the front there. Yeah, you can see that hydration pack there. And so the Cadel Factory Racing pair, as Neil said, they can't help themselves. This man, he's decided to go ahead. He's the marathon world champion. and so he's decided, I'm going to have a little go.
Well, there we get a good shot of that pack that he's carrying, and you'll see the others. They're bareback, so to speak. They're just carrying the water bottles on the bike. But Scots Tram in very close attendance, keeping a very close eye. Avancini and Fumic won a couple of early stages last year and really looked a threat before fading back a bit more.
Yeah, we are out in the mountains here in the Overberg region, and at times the reception isn't fantastic, so we'll do our very best to bring you these images. Look how clear those are. Hynek and Veldhag right up there, and then the Bulls Heroes are in there too.
It's encouraging to see Carl Platt back up there. It looks like he's maybe found his legs for the day.
There's Fumic, yeah. So you see Avancini on the attack at the front, but Fumic is just losing the wheel a little bit there, getting a few riders in between.
And Kohavi making his way up.
And the cross spur guys are there as well, so this is on board, and that is fantastic footage, isn't it? Gert Haynes there, the DSV Scott SRAM backup team. He's riding with Henri Fishnick in support of the Scott SRAM leading team of Schurter and Foster.
Now with Avancini on the attack and Fumic back where he is, communication is critical, and knowing where your teammate is. Of course, you're only allowed to ride within 2 minutes of each other and not outside of that, and otherwise you get a penalty. So Avancini's going to have to keep a good eye on how much he's distancing the group and his own teammate.
And Nino Schurter will know that only too well. He's sitting on the front there saying, well,
go
knock
as far as
yourself
you
out.
want.
Yeah. Your partner's behind me here, so we're not going to go any faster to bring him closer.
That's one way to really limit the advantage of a breakaway. You just let them ride one guy, keep an eye on the second one, and it neutralises him at least at a maximum of 2 minutes. He's got to be very careful. He doesn't go further out than that.
The other disadvantage of riding out at the front is that if Avancini if it's too far ahead, then if Fumic has a mechanical or anything like that, he'll never get to see it.
Well, that gap has really opened up over the last 400 or 500 metres of that climb. It's really quite a split now.
You see the after effects of devastating fires that came swept through this part of the world. In there is Fumic now. So he's a long way back off that group. Back to the leading women, and this is Maja Wostowska and Ariane Luthi of Cross Spur, and this is the race leaders, Anneke Langville and Anna van der Breggen.
So they're out on the chase behind these two riders.
So these are the second on the road, we believe, and third, in fact, these two.
They're third on the road. When we looked at the time checks, the second water point, we had Investec Songo Specialized almost 2 minutes ahead of Summit Fin and Crossbow Racing. But it looks like that Summit Fin and Crossbow Racing have been separated.
And Luthi goes to the front there. As
these are the leaders.
Yep, Van der Breggen in the orange race leaders jerseys from Investec Songo Specialized.
So they have already ridden away quite a bit on the stage, and that was, we saw a group behind them which thought for a moment was the rest of some of the women's field. In fact, it's some of the men's field and masters that they've caught and passed.
So that is the Scots Tram. That looks like Lars Forster there on the chase, on the pursuit of Henrik Avancini, but not too worried about what's happening up front. Avancini is a long way ahead of his partner Manuel Fumic. So a long way to go for these the riders as they came through the first water point, which today was at 29 kilometres. Nino Schurter and Lars Forster came together with Gutierrez and Chink, the cross spur team, and they were all together. But it's opened up significantly since then now.
Well, there was quite a big split at that first water point, and there was somewhat of a regrouping. But now the race really splitting apart again, and Scots Tram going on the attack. They have Avancini off the front, but taking the opportunity, sticking together, Scots Tram, and they left Manuel Fumic behind. So that really has ruined the attack of Avancini, and the advantage going to Scots Tram.
You can only think that Avancini is hoping that Manuel Fumic will bridge the gap. So if one rider attacks, then the next one can then bridge a gap, and eventually they can rejoin.
Yeah, get a free ride across using the other teams across the farm track, sitting in the slipstream.
That's the hope.
At the moment, Fumic, he wasn't in touch over the top of that last climb, so unable to take advantage of that situation, and now they're going to be behind the 8 ball.
Right, just to we go.
Well, I was going to say, don't think that the other teams haven't noticed that Fumic is a little bit on the back foot. And like any professional cyclist, when you smell blood in the water, they're going to
wind it up a bit.
Drive it home.
Yeah, put him under pressure.
And there he is. This is Group 3. Fumic in the white jersey right in the middle, just entering the forest. So he's a good 30 seconds behind the Scots Tram pairing of Forster and Schurter.
So they're going to go into that little forest section, and we'll pick them up as they come out there. Just to bring you up to date on the Dimension Data Masters category yesterday, the pair of Jose Mir and Joaquim Rodriguez, Burrito, they were the winners yesterday by 3 minutes and 2 seconds over Martin Chilingi and Eric Decker, two former road pros, with another, the 7C Willia team there, Masters team, Dax Jekyll and Massimo De Patolis in third place, 3 minutes and 29 down. That'll be a race to keep an eye on. But a big gap for Hamida and Rodriguez. They will be difficult to beat if they stay safe this race.
They will be, but you've got to take everything in context. And Eric Decker and Martin Chilingi actually had a mechanical. They had a flat tyre during the prologue, so they did a quick fix, especially for roadmen doing their own mechanics. Normally a roadie will just put their hand up, the mechanic will run up and change the wheel, doing their own mechanics, but they managed to get it done, but coming in on very low pressure, so they lost a little bit of extra time. But certainly Rodriguez and Hermida, the dominant pairing in that category.
And the experience of those two as well. They've ridden, this is their third one together, so. And Hamida's no stranger to the race. He's won stages, he's worn the yellow jersey, so he knows all there is to know about the Absa Cape Epic.
Right, in the Grandmasters 50-plus category, Abra Azevedo and Bart Brenchens of CSC Sand Bafang are the leaders there. They won yesterday by 1 minute and 22 over Mirandal, Sparty Bucher and Hans-Jörg Gerber. With the Z-Boys, Tim and Troy Zimmerman from the United States, 1 minute and 25 back. How cool is that? We've got some bike art here as well, live bike art. It was beautiful to see. Cool Harvey looks over his shoulder. Look at that, fantastic. The taking a leaf out of the Tour de France's book, and we've got our very own live bike art on the farms here. Fantastic. Very, very cool. So that is the second water point as they come through now, and that is water point 2 at one at Heaven and Earth, top of Shaw's Pass, and that bike has stopped. I don't know how many of the leaders will stop at this water point.
It looks like they might have broken a spoke in the front wheel there and have to sort that out. Maybe they use a stick out of the bush to repair that and get that field art going again.
Yeah, when the race splits up like this and you're going at a really big whack, and it's 43 k's in, and do you stop? Do you take on a bottle? No, you can't, because they're going to get away further ahead there. Those are the decisions that have to be made in a split second.
And this is the time it's really handy to be carrying a pack like Avancini and Fumic are, but the drawback now is they're not together. Avancini off the front, Fumic back in Group 3. The good thing is, though, that having the pack on, well, others may stop. Fumic can power on through and maybe get himself back in contention. So that's how tactical it becomes, and how handy it is for him to be carrying that pack. We'll see how that plays out.
And also the riders that go through the water point really quickly have the luxury of being out first, and they can then have a bit of a gap. And that gap may not necessarily be a move, because it's really early to make a move stick at this point. But what they'll do is they'll keep the pace quite high, and that forces the others to just put a bit of extra effort in to catch, which after a few times of doing that, it eventually wears you down. And they're acutely aware of this.
Gaze and Kulhavi tracking the wheels of Schurter and Foster, and many believe this is perhaps where the race over the week will evolve, with obviously Cadel Factory Racing wanting to play a role in this as well. A little flick of the elbow there from Nino Schurter saying come through.
Well, looking a lot more promising for Gaze and Kulhavi after what we saw yesterday, losing almost 2 minutes to our race leaders here in the yellow jerseys. And a good opportunity for them to get some time back on a lot of the other teams, because they lost significant time to not only the leaders but everybody, all those 6 teams in front of them.
See how polite these mountain bikers are, Robbie. Nino says, won't you come through, please, Sam? And Sam says, okay, I'll go through.
I'm not sure if that's exactly what he said. That's a summary of the conversation.
Yes, a summary. We perhaps won't bring you the original. But Sam Gaze goes to the front there, and Schurter will follow his wheel for a while. And
as we said earlier, the onus is definitely on the attacking riders, on the riders who are not in yellow. Yellow, all they need to do is sit up and let the race happen. They can ride defensively. But at the same time, riding defensively means riding at the front. Just means that it's up to now up to Coolharvey and Sam Gaze to try and get ahead.
And at the moment, I'm getting the impression that Sam Gaze is the stronger of that combination with Coolharvey. And Coolharvey, he was a little bit apprehensive at the press conference. He mentioned a few times that Sam is very explosive, and I'll have my work cut out to keep up with him, the short, punchy stuff. And each time we see a corner and Gaze accelerate from the front, Coolharvey gets put at 4-5 lengths and has to close that back down. You see them scrambling behind this second chase group. Still no sign of Fumich. And in fact, Group 3, top of the rise in the background, are falling further behind.
So in this group here that we see just a little bit behind Scots Tram and Investec Songo Specialized is the young and old pairing of, yes, that's Christian Hynek and Fegerhaug, yes. So the youngster is doing a great first Absa Cape Epic.
He's a serious talent, absolutely superbly skilled rider as well, and it'll be an interesting journey for him with Christian Hynek, who at the age of 38 is done it all pretty much. Christian Hynek, he has an Absa Cape Epic title to his name with Robert Menon as well, so he's been around. But just going back to Coolharvey, he's not the force on the World Cup circuit that he used to be. I mean, last year his best result was at Val di Sole at 25 in the, I beg your pardon, 9th at Novo Mesto at his home track in the Czech Republic. But other than that, 25th was his best result on the World Cup circuit. So not quite the force he was when he was the Olympic champion in 2012 and world champion and marathon world champion, but you cannot discount him. Here they are. This is the leaders. Scots Tram and Investec Songo Specialized, keeping a watching brief on one another, and Schurter it is who's gone to the front.
This is certainly not the move that'll win them the race overall at the end of the week, but what it does do is it puts the others under pressure and forces them to just push the pace just a little bit more than they would normally, and as we said earlier, it all adds up.
A little food there for Sam Gaze, taking it on now just to keep himself in good reserves as he rides on the front.
Well, in a race like this one, you've got to take every opportunity on these farm tracks, on the open roads, to drink and eat when you can, because you're pretty quickly onto single track or technical sections or little sections like this. And again, we see that last night's rainfall has really filled up some of the creeks and crossings throughout the course.
One of the significant differences between a so-called marathon specialist and a cross-country rider is a cross-country racer will always have a preview of the course. So they're riding courses of 5, 6, 7 kilometers, doing laps. Yep, looks like the catch is about to happen.
I think just ahead of Christian Hynek is Henri Cavancini. I think he's discarded his hydration pack, and Manuel Fumich is just there as well.
They may have done that at the water point.
Yeah, I think they've done that at the water point.
So they would have arrived at the water point with full bottles.
Yep.
Yeah, so probably skipped an early water point,
skipped the used
the pack, and then it stopped at water point 3. Although Avancini was 35 seconds ahead of Fumich at water point 3, but obviously chosen to then wait and hook back up, and they're now on the chase behind our leading quartet.
There was his plan: ride ahead, get to the water point, take the time out, get it out, and then join up with Fumich now. This is the next group of riders, the third group on the road. The Bulls in there, Cross Spur in there, and the Willier team in there as well. So that's the next group, and they're all the gaps aren't huge.
But testimony to the pace that they're running at the front, the Scots Tram guys and the Investec Songo Specialized team, they are not giving that. They would make sense to wait up a little bit, let the two teams behind them catch them so they could work together, but not giving them a single inch.
Beautiful part of the world, is the Overberg region in this Hemel and Aarde Valley. It's rich and fertile. There are wine estates and plenty of grain farms as well. As we keep an eye on this year's Absa Cape Epic Stage 1 and get a closer look at this group of riders, and it's the women's leaders, Investec Songo Specialized, Langval and Van der Breggen.
Langval, time trial, tucking into a time trial position. She holds on the top of the forks, just gives her aerodynamically gives her the frontal area just a lot. It reduces it quite significantly, and big aero advantage for her. So when she's on the front, she pushes the pace.
Now, just looking at that group behind, that's one of the men's categories, one of the, I think, the masters categories behind the ladies. But the rules of the race are they may not sit on the women, and they were getting quite close. We saw a bit of a gap and then closing that back down, so they've got to back themselves off.
Redressing what we went to yesterday regarding drafting in the prologue yesterday, Galileo Risk did pick up a half-hour time penalty for drafting on the Summit Fin team at the top of the Tafelberg climb, so they dropped right back. They lost half an hour, which is
that is a huge penalty.
Yeah.
That is massive, considering the advantage they would have gained. I would have thought would be for them maybe around 30-40 seconds possibly at the most. To get a half-hour penalty is a massive penalty, so with penalties like that in force, you're well advised to follow the rules in this Cape Epic.
Definitely, but of course when the heat of the action, it's just so tempting if you can get a couple of seconds here and there.
Avancini, yes, there he is, the Brazilian champion. He's wearing his Brazilian champion's jersey because this race conforms to the cross-country UCI regulations, so the cross-country champions are recognized, and that's why Nino Schurter is wearing the world champion cross-country jersey. Avancini, although this is more a marathon style event, he's in his Brazilian cross-country champions jersey, not the marathon world champions jersey. Likewise, Annika Langfeld, who's the marathon women's marathon world champion. So Avancini, as we saw, has discarded his hydration pack, and the German cross-country champion Manuel Fumic is his partner, and he's there as well.
And we're just hearing from out on the course, Nino Schurter just had a minor mechanical a couple of moments ago. He's back up and riding, but that has allowed Cannondale and Canyon to get themselves back up to the front group. So all these little things, a stroke of luck for those teams that were on the chase.
Well, we have cross-country racers who are used to scouting the course and knowing every inch of it, and the marathon riders just they understand the need to be able to expect the unexpected, the untamed, and it's quite a significant factor. If you come across things that you just don't normally see in a mountain bike race as a cross-country rider, you need to be able to deal with that quickly.
Farmers working hard in the distance, and the riders doing likewise here. Stenhoven, Strauss, Lil and Morat, and then some of the men's teams in amongst these women, but Stenhoven and her partner Mariska Strauss looking to try and close the gap, or manage the gap anyway, to the leaders in this race. And then they've got a bit of time to make up. Stenhoven and Strauss, they are about just half a minute, no, in fact a minute and a half behind Summit Fin's Lil and Adelaide Morath. That's on the GC after yesterday's prologue. Back with our men's leaders here. So it's all back together here in terms of Cannondale Factory Racing, Scott Factory Racing, then Investec Songo Specialized, and also Hynek and his partner Veldhaag from a Canyon.
Well, we see Manuel Fumic in there, and Avancini, I think, is again on the attack. May have just gone off. No, he's on the closer to camera.
Yeah, he's in the. Well, that's light green on his jersey there.
Yep.
Yeah.
But he's been doing quite a lot of the attacking and pacemaking up and back, and he's really just got to get a handle on how well Manuel Fumic is feeling and whether those attacks are really worth making.
It's all about communication between the riders. Some riders are really good at it. They have this unique ability, this almost telepathic communication between them. We remember the days of Carl Platt riding with Stefan Sam. They absolutely were completely in tune. They knew exactly what each other were feeling at any time, just by a look or a glance or a word. And it's super important to keep those lines of communication open between the teams.
You would think that Cannondale Factory Racing have that. This is their third year here together, and of course they travel the world together as the Cannondale Factory Racing team. Some of the others, of course, Schurter and Foster, a new combination. Likewise, Gaze and Kulharvi. Likewise, Hynek and Veldhaag. So this is today will be a big day for them in terms of just establishing how they communicate, what they communicate, when they communicate. Adelaide Morath has ridden with Candice Lil, of course. They won the FME Wines to Wales here in this part of the world late last year. Back with the men's group here.
So that group's come together. Now we're watching the riders at the back certainly aren't putting not doing any of the work. They really would like to recover now. They've spent a bit of energy trying to catch up. They got on the back, and it's time to just regroup and get their heart rates down and the recovery.
So Gaze and Coolharvey of Investec Songo Specialized. It's Forster second wheel, Schurter behind him, then Fumich. And Gaze has just dropped over to the left-hand side, then Avancini, Hynek, and the young Veldhag right at the back. Doesn't do the angle doesn't do this climb justice, because you can see them working here. They're having to work a little bit here. It's a bit of it's not a steep climb by any stretch of the imagination, but it's a gentle ascent, but it's not easy pedaling just yet. Well, some of them make it look very, very easy.
Well, Yaroslav Coolharvey, he's looking a lot more comfortable on this stage one than he did in the prologue yesterday. So he's really back in his element on these long, tough stages. And certainly that high-intensity, punchy 20-kilometre prologue is not to his liking. Suffered last year, lost almost a minute, nearly 2 minutes this year to Nino Schurter and Lars Forster. But in control at the moment, on the front, setting the pace. And sometimes you go to the front to set a pace that's just more comfortable for you, not trying to put the rest in trouble, but making sure there's no one else going on the front, going faster than you'd like to go.
Well, it's a slightly older rider. He maybe likens himself to a bit of a diesel engine, and if you can keep a really high rhythm, it keeps the others honest.
Well, Coolharvey has an incredible record. I mean, he's won the Olympic gold medal, the World Championship at cross country, the World Championship at marathon, and the World Cup overall. So,
and he's won the Absa Cape Epic.
And he's won the Absa Cape Epic.
So we can say that he's probably one of the most complete mountain bikers of his generation, and perhaps ever.
Absolutely.
Now we've got to keep a very close watch on the rider at the back there. That's the young, the 21-year-old Peter Veldhag. We've really got to hope that his partner Christian Hynek is looking after him, making sure that he's eating, drinking, and that he's not riding beyond himself. Because if that happens, if he spends too long in the red zone, it's all going to get very difficult later on for him.
Well, Fumich would be comfortable with this. Look at him sitting there just behind Nino Schurter.
It's really early in the race. We're talking about the entire week.
Yes.
In the context of the week, for a break like this is only 4 teams up the road, and it's a bad sign for the others. Of course, it is a long week, but to have a selection at this point, we did predict that around about the 60-kilometre mark, 65-kilometre mark, that there would be a selection. This has proven to be correct, but let's keep a very close watch on after the water point at the 83-kilometre mark. That's going to be a big factor coming into this, coming into the finale of the race. There's a climb just after that, and then the Land Rover technical terrain down into the Hemel and Aarde single track.
Avancini, Hynek, Veldhag, and our intrepid e-bike camera, who with the men's race today is Neil, Stefan Scham. There's Stefan on that.
Stefan's following the men, and we've got Thomas Ditch who's following the women.
Well, looking at the route today, you would expect they'll go through that next water point after 83 kilometres, and they've got quite a solid climb, and that would be the place where, if a team is feeling good enough and aggressive enough to go on the attack on the climb, there's no advantage for others slipstreaming, so you can just go as hard as you want, and then you've got a gradual downhill run and through the Land Rover technical terrain, and it's only 21 kilometres to go from the top of that climb, most of it being downhill, so it's a good place to go on the attack and try and open up a gap.
Charging down through the forest on the one side and the orchards on the other. Sharp left-hander. And it is Coolharvey. Well, many feel that the Coolharvey-Gaze combination is one that could go on, perhaps. Well, we'll have to see what happens this year, but if it does stay together, it could be a very, very effective Absa Cape Epic combination for many years to come. Gaze, of course, is a cross-country racer, the man who snapped the record, the unbeaten record of Nino Schurter a year ago in Stellenbosch in the World Cup, in a thrilling race, the first round of the UCI cross-country World Cup.
Well, we'll see how long that does go on, if in fact they are successful in this Cape Epic, Coolharvey and Sam Gaze. Sam Gaze, his long-term goal at the moment is the Tokyo Olympics. He wants to win the gold medal for New Zealand in the cross-country at the Olympics. After that, he has his heart set on a professional road career, and he is obsessed by the spring classics, the cobbled classics in Belgium and northern France, so the Tour of Flanders, Paris-Roubaix, and that's where he sees his future laying post-Tokyo 2020.
And how do you see him going there?
I see him going exactly in that direction. He's been very successful in the road. A week before this event, we saw him win the Cape Town Cycle Tour, but he's also won a number of events in New Zealand and throughout Oceania. He's done quite a lot of road racing in Europe as well, so he's had a real taste for those type of races, racing in Belgium, and he's got the physique, he's got the body and the power to really suit those type of races, and we've seen what sort of engine he's got. So,
and he's got a good sprint.
And he's got a fantastic sprint on him. I think we may see him go backwards and forwards a little bit between road and mountain bike, because it seems with professional road teams, they're giving a lot more scope to riders to explore other types of racing. We see riders crossing over between mountain bike and road, or cyclocross and road, gravel events as well, and there's a few teams exploring different types of events for their riders. It's all about having reach for your sponsors and getting victories, and Sam Gaze, he's so versatile, he could do it on many fronts.
There was talk when Jaroslav Kulhavy was racing with Christoph Sauser here 4, 5, 6 years ago, that he would be snapped up by a road team at some stage. Are you surprised he hasn't been?
It's always difficult to see. It's Robbie will attest. Well, Robbie will maybe confirm. It's a difficult thing, a road career. You have to have the right luck, the right contacts, and maybe he prefers winning at mountain biking.
It's really difficult to say. I mean, there's so many elements that go into it. As we see a mechanical here for the cross spur team, trying to get a quick repair done. But crossing over onto the road, there's a number of elements. I mean, there's a whole lot of big engines in the road peloton. So you go over there and people might say, oh, he's fantastic in the mountain bike. He's so powerful. He's a big engine.
Good, yeah.
There's a lot of big engines there, so you're not unique. What makes the mountain bikers unique is their skill set, how they can handle a bike, how they can ride. And that's why classics tend to suit a lot of them. The lighter built guys, we've seen guys cross over and be hugely successful. Cadel Evans, Jakob Fuglsang, Ryder Hesjedal. So 2 of those 3 have won Grand Tours, the Tour de France and the Giro d'Italia.
Fuglsang won yesterday.
He won yesterday in Tirreno Adriatico, a mountaintop finish, and he's threatening for the lead in that race. But I find one of the really big differences going from a mountain bike to a road, you've really got to fit within a team and that structure and tactically. And a lot of riders, they've grown up riding for themselves, they've evolved like that. They don't find that fit, and they don't like the situation necessarily, and they tend to go back to mountain biking and ride for themselves.
Leland, but no, beg your pardon, this is our mixed leading team. I think this is, indeed it is, our leading mixed team, which is Sebastian and Laura Stark from Germany.
They had a great day out yesterday. They put almost 3.5 minutes into the MMR mixed team. That's we've just talked about road cycling. That's Oscar Freire, the 3-time world road champion, riding with Natalia Fischer, and also on a good day out today by the looks of it.
Back with our leading men's team, and still Investec Songo Specialized with Scots Tram behind them, Cannondale Factory Racing's there, and right at the back, Peter Fagerhard, who won 3 World Cups at the under-23 level last year. He's still just 21. And mixing it at the sharp end here with the legends of the sport. It's, as Neil suggests, it's going to be very interesting to see how this week goes for young men. There's some conjecture as to whether the Absa Cape Epic is for the more mature riders at this end of the race, at the very sharp end.
It's such a mixture. Sometimes you get the really young riders doing particularly well, and sometimes the older ones, and it all depends on the circumstances. And we've talked. We know it's the untamed African race, and anything can happen, and it's all about how you manage those circumstances, manage those difficulties, and manage the disasters that inevitably will happen.
Very interesting here. Langveld and Van der Breggen on the back end of a little train of men further down the field, and only one line going up here. Well,
yeah, they'll look to pass these men as soon as they possibly can, and the men, it's all about being good sports. They'll not interfere with the racing of the women, with the elite women.
No, we've seen them looking behind and see them coming and moving out of the way. I wonder, is that Thomas Frickschneck and his partner, or is that one of the other Scott Tram Masters teams? But the ladies just making their way past that group, so they crossed the gap on the climb. But those men in front, they've done the right thing. They've seen them coming, moved over to the left and let them race on through.
Let the stronger riders through. That's how it should work, as we're back with the strongest so far, because these are the men on the front and the local farmers welcoming them through the lands here. And that's one of the real bonuses of this event. The landowners have been incredible in allowing the riders. Here's Avancini, just pops in front of Gaze there. The landowners allowing the riders and the Absa Cape Epic access to their lands here. It wouldn't happen without this. This is the second ladies team, the cross spur team of Maja Wostovska and Ariane Luti, who just goes to the front for a moment on this climb. And Wostovska just going to try and open a gel there to take on some fuel. Riding in amongst some of the riders in the Exaro special category, and the leaders in that category, Lucky Plangeni and Tsepo Klo from the Exaro PWC team. And they were yesterday 27 seconds ahead of Luyanda Tobungunya and Bapapele Mbobo from the BMT Fairtree combination. Very late entries into the race, but they got in last week, which is fantastic. Also just finding their way through here, Luti and Wostovska. Sean Oosthuizen just behind there. And Preswa Msundi from Zimbabwe is Sean's partner.
They're going to be navigating this this climb, and right after this climb they're going to hit a water point, and then we'll get a very clear indication of just how far Investec Songo Specialized are ahead of Crossspur and their rivals.
Again, just apologies for the occasional breakup of our images. We're doing our absolute best, and we bring you as much as we can, and I think you'll appreciate it. It's fantastic to see the racing coming to you live, as we see a little bit of a fracture now starting to happen. Just a moment there, you can see the yellow jerseys with a little bit of a gap to the rest of the riders in that field. This is the Summit Fin and Fairtree Silverback women's combinations sticking together here.
And they're riding steadily together. They're at perhaps a bigger advantage than the cross spur guys, because they have each other for company. They can work together. They can take turns at the front. If there's any wind, they can shelter a little bit, take a rest, and then take a turn. Much the same as road tactics. And it's difficult when you're out on your own and you're not really sure where your rivals are. There's no one to give you time checks. So they're in maybe a little bit more of a comfortable position here.
Adelaide Morat, and she's on the front here, and in third wheel here is Jenny Stenenhagen. Both those two riders missed last year's event. Jenny was the defending champion last year, but couldn't ride, so they've got unfinished business, or coming back to make amends for last year.
We had Jenny in the booth last year.
Yeah.
She certainly had a high degree of FOMO sitting commentating, but perhaps not a bit more of a comfortable place to sit than over there, right out there in the field on a bike.
Here we go. This is Foster and Schurter now. A little bit of a gap they've opened up. The leaders are starting to wind up the clock a little bit on the lead group here of Investec Songo Specialized, Cadel Factory Racing, and we see that the Canyon pair of Hynek and Fagerhard have lost touch here.
That's a significant moment for them. The morals will be down on that, having lost touch with the group there. They'll probably be best to wait for the next group to come, conserve their energy, and hide in the shelter of the chasing group. But it is interesting that Lars Foster is the one making the pace on that climb.
Well, he will know. There's Hynek, and Fagerhard is the man in the white helmet, a little bit further back here, and it's the deep end for
Fagerhard.
23. Yeah.
Of course, we're 3 hours into age, and he's maybe only used to riding for an hour and a half flat out, so perhaps it's all taking its toll now.
Steep climb this. Look at the effort being put in by these riders, bending their backs. Kulhavi on the front, then Fumic, Avancini, Gaze, and Stefansson. He's not
Stefan
putting
Simon,
quite as much effort.
No, he's got a 400 watts in reserve in that motor of his with a 500 watt-hour motor.
That gives you a good indication
That
of how
does it,
steep
right?
this is now as the heli makes its way around. It really is a steep climb, and it speed's very low and right down on their smallest gear. The rider in last position there.
That's
Fargo.
Fargo.
He was just struggling there. You know, you saw that front wheel left and right almost at a 90-degree angle, just trying to keep his balance.
We almost wish we could have the readings of how many watts they're putting out. They're creeping along, so it's testimony to the slope of this and also the surface. We can't underestimate how loose that surface is. We haven't ridden it recently, and the surface of the trails can vary day by day. Hopefully with a bit of rain it's a bit firmer. They'll have a bit more traction. It won't have to. It won't have the risk of having to get off and walk, which breaks the rhythm. Looks like that Cool Harvey is getting a bit between. If it's a flat section, Cool Harvey is definitely at an advantage. He can close that gap down to Shota and drag the others back.
Vegetation, lots of fynbos in this part of the world, the Cape Floristic Kingdom. This is very much part of that, so it's stunningly beautiful and natural vegetation, mainly the fynbos.
Some great onboard footage from Stefan Sam. Really in the
greeting there, isn't it? Yeah.
In the thick of the action. It's any rider who's sitting at home watching this will definitely get that FOMO. This is what it looks like at the front end of the field. So Mancini is making a move. He's looking to give Jaroslav Kulharvi a bit of a hand. He's obviously feeling pretty sprightly, making sure that he gets right back on to the wheels of Nino Shota and Lars Foster.
And Gaze and Fumich, the back end of the bus of this leading group on stage one of the Absa Cape Epic, 112 kilometers today and 2,700 meters of climbing. Just 41 seconds at the start of the day between the Scots Tram mountain bike team of Shota and Foster and Cadel Factory Racing's Fumich and Avancini.
It's almost remarkable how the predictions that we made pre-race, this is exactly how it's. If the race were to stop right now, this is pretty much our first three predictions in terms of overall winners.
Absolutely.
Well, at least we can rely on the race to be unpredictable and throw something up. And we've just seen our e-bike leave the track, so it looks like all the racers got through there cleanly, but the e-bike, he just lost it in the corner and went into the tree.
That little bit of rain we've had, you can see by the dark sort of soil there. It's obviously fairly light coloured soil, but the dark cuts there. We go a little bit of a stop. And yeah, it can be a little bit tricky to make the corners at high speed. You can lose it occasionally. And
oh, there's one. That's Sam
Gaze.
Gaze.
Yeah.
So these corners catching not just the e-bike rider out, but also one of the very best in the business, cross-country specialist Sam Gaze.
Looking down, I wonder if he might have had a mechanical.
Well, there's a lot of debris on the trail here. You can see just, it's not that clear from the picture, but there's twigs and branches and rocks lying, often hidden in the middle section. So if you're trying to jump over that little middle, they call it the middle manaki, if you're trying to jump over there, you may easily connect with something and then ends up in your spokes or in your derailleur, and you have to stop to get it out, otherwise you'll cause catastrophic damage to your mechanics.
And it's always a lot more difficult when you're sitting in the wheel, sitting on the train in the slipstream. Yes, it's easier physically to sit there, but you know, you can come undone. You're following the wheel, you hit a rock that you haven't seen, someone else has dodged around it, or you just don't quite take the right line because you just can't quite see it. And there you go, you're off the back. Kulharvi set up to wait for Gaze, so he's seen that very quickly and reacted, and you know, much better off to stop, have a two-man chase to get back. It's no point Kulharvi just staying with the group and sitting on and leaving Gaze to his own devices. It'll really blow him up. So now, two-man team time trial to try and get back. It's still struggling in the corners now, Kulharvi.
The art now of Kulharvi and Gaze is to not chase too hard to get back on. It's critical that they don't get too excited, don't get too nervous if they're off the pace, and just gradually, bit by bit, catch up and not blow up, not go into the red zone, which they would pay for later.
Well, that looks like it's cost them about 30 seconds, that incident for Sam Gaze, and we saw into the distance a moment ago and we couldn't quite see that leading group. Now, right up the end of the track, top of screen, you can just see them, so that's quite a chase ahead for these two.
They know they've just got to keep their powder dry and keep chasing. They know that whatever happened to them is just as well likely to happen to any of the others.
Well, it's a flatter part of this course at the moment. They're coming up towards a mini water point, so they'll hope that these teams need to make a quick splash and dash, and that they can do an even quicker one and get themselves back on.
Here's a little look at what happened here. So Gaze must have had an off.
He's had a big off. His bike was caught on the left. He was another 10 metres down the track, so he's had quite a big fall.
It's always a risk turning those handlebars. Make sure you get them exactly straight.
So he's really gone over the handlebars and flown. He's gone on his head, so he's straightening up his helmet and his handlebars.
What sometimes happens in these trails is because it's so wild and so rough, often it's possible to get a handlebar caught, and that can swing you sideways and send you off into the bushes. It's not necessarily rider error, it's more just a branch that happens to catch you at the wrong place.
And very big changes in the type of ground you're riding on. It goes from very hard packed dirt to stones and rocks, and then to just really loose sand, and can really grab the front wheel and throw you off.
Yeah, you've got to be so alert and so focused. The concentration levels high all the way through the day here for these guys. 4.5 hours of intense concentration on these trails.
So just 3 or 4 minutes ago, we had 4 leading teams. We're now down to 2. Fumic just losing the wheel a little bit. And we have seen him struggling just half an hour or so ago when Avancini was on the attack. But right throughout this stage, in control has been Forster and Schurter, our leading men from the Scots Tram team. They're riding on the front. Kulhavi now has a problem.
Here's a problem now. Jaroslav Kulhavi, in chasing back, he's had a problem with his cleats.
Oh, he's got a problem with his cleats. Well, he seems to be addressing it, which is the main. At least he's got his tool. He's got all that he needs to solve this. It's critical that they stay calm, solve the problem properly the first time. It's very easy and very tempting to not pay attention, just try and get a quick fix, and then get back on the bike. But if you don't do it right the first time, they'll just end up having to do it again.
Well, this is a problem you really would not expect to see. Yes. The riders have their equipment set up and right and checked, and things like your cleat bolts are fixed in, that you've used whatever product to make sure they don't come loose. So that really seems to me like an amateur mistake, a rookie error as far as equipment setup goes.
Well, we can only hope that it's not the mechanic's fault and not Kulhavi's fault, that perhaps a piece of rock or a stone maybe got caught underneath it and makes it difficult to clip in. Some strange things have happened out there on the trails.
Well, you'd hope for Kulhavi that it's not a rookie error, that is something, a real anomaly, something you really unexpected that he's had to do that. But if it's just a case of it coming loose, then that is a huge error.
Costly for Investec Songo Specialized. So an off for Sam Gaze, then a wardrobe malfunction for Jaroslav Kulhavi, and they're on the chase now. Meanwhile, we sit on the back of the Bulls team. I think that was the Bulls, not the Legends, the other of the teams, Joris Huber and Simon Steve John, and they're chasing as well. And they're all chasing the Scots Ram team, and look at this now. This is the Investec Songo Special. I think Trek Salas and Marco
the Trekkies have joined them. The Trekkies are joining them, and they're going to all group together. So it'll be Canyon, it'll be Investec Songo Specialized, and the Trekkies will all team together to bring back Scots Ram and Cannondale.
I think that's Porro and Ferraro, Samuele Porro and Damiano Ferraro of Trek Salas and Marco. And they are in the game now as well.
So in the meantime, just in front of that group is Fagerhoog, who was struggling on the last climb and dropped.
And the Africa leaders there in their red jerseys, Alan Hathley and Matt Beers.
And we had the Bulls catching them, so we've got it all, it's all coming together.
And you look at this terrain and at this speed that they're going through here, and it is no surprise when a rider does go down as quickly as Sam Gaze went down there.
And we can see how quickly things can go wrong. The bushes on the side, the changing terrain, the changing trail surface, and before you know it, you're suddenly crossing a river. All not part of the race manual. Impossible to plot every single pitfall along this course.
Another man, Alan Hathley, in his first Absa Cape Epic. He, of course, a cross-country specialist, and he's purposefully steered clear of marathon racing and stage racing for a few years. Well, he's ridden some of the end-of-season races, but he is a lap racer in the cross-country style. Coolharvey driving it hard as he chases back. Look at the gap.
Well, he's really driving hard. Sam Gay's quite a way off the wheel, and I wonder what the effects have been from that crash. We saw Gay's having to straighten his helmet. There's our leaders in the distance, so quite a gap. But that's at over a minute they are ahead now. Gay's losing around 30 seconds with his crash, then Coolharvey costing them another 40 seconds or so with that problem with his cleat. So, but I just wonder if Gaze is suffering a bit from that crash. We saw him straightening up his helmet. He's obviously hit his head a bit, and it's not out of the realms of possibility that he's suffered a bit of a concussion as well, and that makes it really difficult to concentrate and be on track.
Yellow jerseys of Scots Tram mountain bike racing on the front here with Cadel Factory Racing. There were 41 seconds adrift at the start of the day, so this is the race here for the time being. It's still early days, not just in the week, but even in this stage. They've set off at 7 o'clock this morning, so they've been going for 3 hours and 10 minutes, and we're on board, watching through the eyes of the bike of Stefan Sam. Look over his shoulder to see what the damage is, and they won't see much for the time being because the Investec Specialized riders are some way off this group.
We're into the last, starting to head to the last 20 kilometers of this stage, and it's going to be they're going to be looking at each other. They're all interested to see, they're going to look into the faces, try and look into the eyes, see how each other are feeling, because they know when they size each other up, they can more or less determine who can win the stage.
European champion Lars Foster on the front there, and his partner's the world champion. Pretty decent combination, that. And
then you've got two national champions with them.
Yep. And the world marathon champion. So it's all the marathon, obviously. The race is anything from 70 to 130 kilometers in distance and one continuous course. But the cross country, of course, the lap racing, short laps of anything between sort of 2 and 3.5 kilometers, and they take an hour and a half.
Well, you see our leaders, they're really not easing off. This is a long, flatter section before they hit the final climb. There's a water point, a mini water point coming up, but they're really not easing off. They're keeping the pressure on this flat section. They know they've now got the others right where they want them. They've got a gap out over a minute over Coolharvey and Gaze, and having put nearly 2 minutes into them yesterday, they don't want them to stay in touch. If they can distance them further, they will, because they're very wary of the powers of Coolharvey, that he will get better as this race goes on. So when they can put time into him, they certainly will.
This little section here, Coolharvey and Gaze on this little road section here will be in their favour in terms of trying to make up some of that ground, because that's where they really are powerful and strong. But they're going to have to work really hard to close the gap to this lot, because they've got the bit between their teeth now.
Well, these riders have been swapping turns, so at least the two leaders, Avancini and Fumic, just happy to take a back seat, enjoy the free ride at the moment.
Nino, just having a chat now with Lars Foster. How are we going to go about this? What's your thought there, Robbie?
Well, I think they're just going to make sure they keep the pressure on those who are on the chase, but not give a completely free ride to the two riders behind them. I think they'll have their heart set on the stage win as well. So just keep the tempo high, keep that gap open, but not make themselves vulnerable to an attack from Avancini and Fumic maybe on this last big climb. And maybe just keep a little bit in reserve to make their own attack, because we have seen Manuel Fumic struggling a little bit, and maybe he's the vulnerable one, and they can offload their team and ride to solo victory.
And even if this break does get neutralized, if there is a bigger group that comes back at them, all is not lost, because they've still gained the advantage of putting the others on the back foot. It's a psychological thing, but they've also forced the others to lose a lot more energy to get back on.
Oh, fascinating first day. It always delivers drama. The Absa Cape Epic on this first day. And this is no different. The world champion, Nino Schurter. I'll look over his shoulder from Avancini to see that it's not a rival, but it's the e-bike of Stefan Sam behind him. Then Fumic right onto the wheel of Lars Foster.
Lars Foster's absolutely living up to riding with the world champion. It's always a big drama in the team. Who's going to ride with Nino? No one wants to let him down. It's a big stress for any rider, big plate to step up to.
Well, so far they've absolutely made the right decision, changing the team in the lead up to this Cape Epic, and Forster, there were question marks pre-event, but he's wiped those away in a prologue and half a stage.
Absolutely. He was going to ride with Gert Haynes as backup to Schurter and Andre Fishnick, but on a race midweek last week, I think the Scott Tram mountain bike team had a look at the shape of Andre Fishnick and decided that perhaps Lars Forster would be a better option, and so it's proved. They changed on Thursday morning to the new combination, and it's proving to be just the ticket for them today, as this is the chase group.
Great to see the Bulls back in contention. They're really on the front end of the field, encouraging for them for the week.
Trek Ellis and Marco there in their red helmets as well. Both Bulls teams there, Carl Platt and Alban Lakata, and Simon Stipjan and Urs Huber. They had a puncture yesterday, Alban Lakata and Carl Platt on their prologue, so they did lose an enormous amount of time, over 3 minutes and 20 seconds. So I want to make up as much of that as they possibly can. Cool Harvey and Gaze, though, have time to make up today.
It's a familiar sight of the Absa Cape Epic with Cool Harvey on the front and a long, thin line behind, hiding in his wake.
Well, that's been good news, this whole situation with Gaze and Cool Harvey. It's been good news for all these chasing teams, the Bulls, also for the team they've picked up with Hynek and Fagerhog. This long, flat section, they can all just sit in the wheel and let Cool Harvey and Gaze do the chasing, and it's been Cool Harvey doing the bulk of the work, but Gaze seems to be just suffering the effects of that crash.
It's all a bit of a game of poker when you get to a group like this. They know, everyone in that group knows that Cool Harvey and Gaze have a lot more to lose from this. Since they were in the front group, they'll be a lot more motivated to chase, and then it'll be a matter of sit back and let the others, the others sitting back and letting them gain back the advantage.
Bearing in mind they were 1 minute and 50 down at the start of today after the prologue yesterday, so they'll be very mindful that Gaze and Cool Harvey have it all to gain here, as the much spoken about perhaps pre-race favourites. Well, perhaps there wasn't an outright favourite. Sure, you cannot discount Schurter and Forster. Here's a look at Fumich and Forster. It's like Fumich saying, "Listen, you can do what you like. I'm going to stay with you here. I'm not the weak link in this team."
Well, I wonder what Schurter's tact is going to be back here with Avancini, if he's planning to try and ride away from him when they get on the climb proper. They're talking to each other.
Well, that's actually an issue for, obviously, for the Cannondale team, because Nino Schurter is a highly explosive rider. Could possibly, if Fumich is struggling a bit, could possibly just quickly gap him, and then we've got Scott Tram, we're going to be away.
Well, keeping each other. There's the marathon champion of the world on the left, the cross-country champion of the world on the right, and handlebar to handlebar.
Well, you'd think the ideal situation from what we've seen so far, and seen that Fumich looked to be the one struggling from the Cannondale team, that it would be better to have Avancini up the road with Forster, and then you'd have Schurter right away from Fumich on the climb and hit them with the 1-2. But interesting tactic playing out here with the teams splitting.
Well, Forster's just put a little dash, and you could see Fumich look over his shoulder saying, "What's that about?" You're going to put, Fumich is looking over his shoulder saying, "Oh, I can't match that pace." And Schurter's going to go across now, and Avancini out of the saddle. Fascinating tactics.
Well, Fumich is the man that Schurter will need to drop and ride across to his own teammate. And no point Avancini going ahead with Schurter then. So,
well, what Fumich is, if Fumich then drops back, then the onus is on Nino Schurter to chase.
Yep.
And no longer on Avancini. So perhaps a good little tactical move by Fumich. Schurter is obliged to stay with his partner, so now he's the one that has to actually pick up the chase.
At least within 2 minutes.
Skip back to the second group, and no Investec Songo specialised in that little image there. The Bulls teams there, Trexelis and Marco, and their Canyon in there as well. There we are. There's Cool Harvey there.
Amazing to see how the impetus, the chase, the urgency of the chase just seems to decline a little bit when Cool Harvey leaves the front. Oh, we got a mechanical there.
One of the Bulls riders.
Seems like he was just putting some chain lube on.
Yeah. It does
That's,
make a
Lakata.
huge difference to how the bike runs, how smooth it is, and how good you feel. You often see in road tours in bad weather, riders will drop back to the team car and get some lube for the final part of the race. It just makes everything run smooth, and that's not a bad little opportunity to take as the group had slowed up a bit and make everything run a little bit smoother, leading into this final tough climb before the long downhill run towards the finish.
And a dry chain often is at risk of getting caught up, getting snagged up, and doesn't quite shift as well. Makes a bit of a noise too. And you've been noticing some of the rain that fell causes some puddles, and we've seen a lot of river crossings. And these river crossings can absolutely strip the chain of any lubricant.
Or you get a wet chain, and then you're onto these tracks, and you then catch
It
all
tracks
the
the
dust, and
dust
it just
going.
turns into
Yep.
a mud chain. So you really got to look after your equipment so it doesn't let you down.
So back together is this chase group with Hynek, who was on the front there. Fagerhout is a little bit further back in the train here.
Well, it's good to see that Fagerhout is still in contention. He hasn't completely blown up. Perhaps managing his efforts really well, not trying to stay with the Scots Tram guys and the Cadel Factory Racing guys. Let's hope he's sitting back and recovering.
So Nino now leading the group behind his own teammate Forster, who's up the trail just a little bit further ahead. But Nino, he can let him go out to 2 minutes, and maybe this is the tactic. Let him get a good gap, keep it within 2 minutes, but Nino doesn't have to push himself, and when he gets to the climb, he can attack these two, try and cross that gap on his own, and then Forster can sit up and wait for him, pick him up, and so it's still working out at the moment for the Scots Tram team.
A little bit of respite here for the chase group as they roll at high speed down these farm roads. And today's trail of 112 kilometres, some 70 of those kilometres on farm roads.
Well, there is Forster just riding out of picture on the left, and here come the other three. Nino Schurter, and then Fumic and Avancini.
Looks like about good 15-20 seconds or so, around about there. Which, if your prediction is correct, Robbie, we could see Nino attacking madly on this climb.
Yeah, so Nino he's riding on the front, setting the pace, but he's not really riding at his maximum across the flat section. He's just keeping the legs ticking over, and I'm sure he knows he'll be able to distance Fumic. He's seen him suffering and been dropped a couple of times. And then looking back the other way, still no sign of that chasing group with the unfortunate Coolharvey and Gaze. Here they are now coming over the ridge.
Just over the top. That's a significant gap, and Coolharvey and Gaze perhaps just deciding we could just manage this as much as we can today. We've had a few issues today on the route, and let's just take it as close as we can to the finish before maybe we can have a go.
Yeah, all they can do is just ride a time trial now to the finish and try and limit their losses, because they were really in contention, looking to make amends for what they would have considered a fairly poor ride yesterday, losing so much time. But this race throws up so much. They were looking so good, and then very quickly crash for Gaze, mechanical for Coolharvey, and they're back out of contention and on the back foot. That gap's got to be out around at a minute and a half.
At least. Gaze and Coolharvey on the front now. But they'll have the climb to come, and perhaps they'll keep their powder dry now. Fumic back with the leading group. Oh, away are Schurter and Forster. I think they're up the road.
Yeah, well, Schurter, he put it in acceleration just after that
watercross,
and we saw Fumic just immediately lose 5 or 6 lengths, and it looks like the bird is now flown.
Boy, gone. Absolutely disappeared are the yellow jerseys of Forster and Schurter.
So they've done it tactically, sending Forster up the road, but maybe wasn't even necessary, because they've been able to drop Fumic a number of times already today, and they've done it tactically, send one up, send the other one across, but probably just could have ridden him out the wheel both at the same time, and it looks like they're out and away and going to build on their lead.
That little climb has started to create a few fractures in this chase group. Those who've been hanging on, perhaps the bulls there, and Peter Fagerhout also just struggling to stay with the group.
It's important for Fagerhout to just keep remembering that it's really his first race, and he needs to make sure that the first day is not his worst.
Fagerhout.
For Fagerhout.
Yeah.
It's a common sight to see the youngsters get really enthusiastic on this
Get
first
a bit
stage.
excited, don't they?
And we've seen Martin Fanger in the past riding for BMC. Was incredibly fast on the first few days, and it was just ashen for the rest of the race.
Saw young Gita Michiels last year riding with Ariane Luthi. Also got a little bit carried away. Ariane, perhaps the communication lines weren't that open there, and she just blew up badly after a couple of stages in near Worcester. And so, yeah, you've got to manage that first race and first day very, very carefully if you're in your very first Absa Cape Epic. I mean, Sam Gaze is a little bit more experienced than Peter Fagerhout as well at this type of thing. He's been out here, he's ridden a couple of the stage races on the local scene here, but not at this level in intensity. There's the gap, and if we look up the road, we see that is Fumic and Avancini. No sight of the yellow jerseys, who are well up the road after crossing the water. Schurter chased up to his partner, Lars Forster, and there they are. Riding just up the top of the... Wow, they've opened up a gap in no time at all.
That just goes to show exactly how much Fumic and Avancini, or maybe it was Fumic who was struggling, that Nino can cross that gap so fast. There must have been a good 20 seconds that he literally rode across it at will.
And Forster's on the front.
Well, Forster's obviously been keeping a very easy, steady, well, not an easy pace, but certainly a steady pace. Schurter has had to put in a bit of effort to catch, so he'll leave a little bit of time for Schurter to recover. And then once Schurter's got his heart rate down again, I'm sure he'll be doing some solid work at the front with Forster.
Forster's 25, and so he's a man with reasonable experience. He was a pretty decent ride at the La Bresse World Cup, where he was in second place there. He won the European Championships in Glasgow last August.
Switzerland just have an absolute massive pool of talent to draw from. If you win the Swiss Championships, you may as well win the World Championships pretty much. And it all comes down to their program. They've got a fantastic program that really focuses heavily on skills when the riders are really young. From 7 or 8 years old, they're doing skills training. They're doing it indoors, outdoors. They're riding around cones. They only start training their bodies, their cardiovascular systems, a little bit later. So they keep it fun, and then of course that hugely develops them as cross-country riders, with the ability to handle their bikes really early on.
It was that incredible race in La Bresse in France when Gerard Kirschbauer, the Italian, and Nino Schurter went head-to-head, and Schurter won by the narrowest of margins in the sprint finish, and Lars Forster was behind him there. In fact, got second place. Kirschbaum and Schurter crossed the line together, although Schurter in fact took the win, but at a dead heat really. And Forster showing he's got what it takes to hang with them, and he is doing so again here. That is Nino Schurter now on the front, having recovered from crossing over and doing the work. And there's no shortage of intensity about that.
Well, he's been joined by Stefan Sam there on the e-bike, and in fact, Schurter he might even have an e-bike himself by the speed that he rode across that gap.
We know he hasn't, though.
Oh.
Out of the saddle, up through the little rocky section as they try and make every stroke there, just open that gap to Fumic and Avancini, who are 41 seconds behind at the start of the day. That gap is growing all the while. The yellow jerseys are building on the lead they established on the Prologue yesterday. Estex Songo Specialized are a team that are a minute and 50 back, and we focus a lot on them because it is the defending champion Jaroslav Kulhavy, the Czech Republic, and his new partner, New Zealand's Sam Gaze, former under-23, double under-23 world champion, who many felt would be one of the favourites to win this race. Well, they lost a minute and 50 yesterday. Avancini showing that he is perhaps the strength of this Cadel factory racing team up that short little incline.
Well, sometimes the strength can become the team's weakness, because he's really got Fumic under pressure to try and stay with him, and sometimes on little sections slower can be faster at the end of the day, because you've got to keep Fumic just riding just underneath that red zone or right on the edge of it, but not push him too hard and that he completely blows up.
So was it a mistake for Fumich to drop back? Because initially Fumich was riding with Lars Foster, keeping pace with him. He dropped back for his partner. Maybe that was a mistake.
Well, I think he dropped back after he got dropped. There was an acceleration by Forster, and I think that was already too much for Fumich, and he thought, well, I can't follow that. I'll blow myself up trying to stay with him. And he immediately looked behind. Maybe didn't expect Nino to go across quite so soon.
Well,
we're still
quite a
just
few
shy of the
kilometres to
water
go.
point 4.
We've got 2 water points to go still.
So they're coming up to around the 85 kilometre mark, which will leave them around 26 kilometres to go.
Yeah, we can't. Well, that will perhaps give us an opportunity to assess the gap between perhaps this group, and I say group, but it is the lead group, Fumich and Avancini in second place, and the chase group. Difficult to guess right now, but there are timing mats at the water point, so we'll as soon as they cross through that, we should be able to bring you a clearer picture on that gap, and the gap between, of course, Schurter and Forster, and Fumich and Avancini. Yeah,
well,
Avancini.
Gerald, getting some unofficial time checks from out on course, but it seems that the gap from our leaders back to the specialised Songo chase group of Coolharvey and Gaze, that's ballooned out from around a minute to over 2 minutes now.
There we go. So that's the group there, the white jerseys on the front, Investec Songo Specialised. And the gap you feel between Cadel Factory Racing in second and Scots Tram at the front is also starting to open up significantly. Because the last image we had of Avancini looking over his shoulder, making sure Fumich is all right all the time, keeping an eye on his partner.
Well, I think it's going to be difficult for Fumich to hold off the chase of Coolharvey and Gaze. They have around a minute and a half lead on this chase group at the moment, but there's our leaders in the distance.
I think that's our second
group. Is that our chase group? Because they look like the white jerseys of Fumich and Avancini. So the Scots Tram boys are really cleared out.
Yep.
And this is a section with this chase group, we get a really good handle on the physical gap that they need to chase down, and that could be quite demoralising.
No Fagerhard and Hynek in this group. The Bulls.
That's Carl Platt.
Carl Platt, yeah, looking to try and close the gap. His old teammate behind him.
Yeah, his old teammate from. In fact, they've won together. They won 3 races together, and no doubt Stefan Sam is not allowed to help him, but he'll certainly be shouting for him.
So the gaps are opening as we get towards the business end of stage 1 of the Absa Cape Epic. The Land Rover technical terrain today is also inside the last 12-13 kilometres, and that'll be another challenge through the Hemel and Aarde single track. Nothing that these riders can't handle, of course. Oh, Platt looked as though he was off his bike there. In fact, it may have been Lecata, because Platt just seemed to go past there.
Yeah, well, it was Lecata. It wasn't Platt. Platt is more with his shoulders high up around his ears. That's his style of riding. We saw that a lot yesterday. So his teammates just made a minor mistake and had to jump off and back on. So they're almost back together, but just trying to chase their way back onto this group in front of them.
The Bulls
now makes contact.
Bulls are on their new bikes. They've received them recently. We heard Alban Lecata commenting on them. He really likes it. He came off a Canyon bike before, and he says that there's quite a lot of similarities in the way that they handle bikes these days. The marathon bikes are starting to go just slightly longer travel, a little bit slacker, to allow for the unexpected technical sections.
Of course, they also have Urs Huber and Simon Stiepjan in that group as well. The other of the Bulls teams. And the Trek Celis and Marco pair of Damiano Ferraro and Samuele Porro.
Well, what's not a good sign for Coolharvey and Gaze is that all these other teams are able to stick with them over this last 10 or 12 kilometres since they had their mishap. So they're really not holding the sort of pace they were earlier before Gaze crashed, and that will just tell us that the team of Scott Tram, Schurter and Fusch are just going further and further away.
And the one thing about a crash, takes a bit of time to recover. Initially there's the adrenaline, and then when that wears off you get a bit of a slump. So that may be happening with Sam Gaze. And then, of course, we had Cool Harvey, who had to adjust his cleat. And any professional rider will tell you that the cleats, the shoes, are one of the most important tools that they have. And any slight misadjustment, of course, when you do it in the heat of the moment, you'll never get it perfect.
Well, those two mishaps have cost them well over a minute, and now their riding is somewhere around 2 minutes behind the lead. So it was really important for them to be able to just sit in the wheels and slipstream behind Schurter and Forster and Avancini and Fumic, and they look to be well in control, Kuhavi and Gaze, and on the comeback already on stage one after not a great ride yesterday in the prologue. But this has really thrown a spanner in their works.
They're on Charlie's Babe, we're led to believe here, and that puts them probably still 25 kilometres from the finish. Just a reminder, the Bulls heroes, Urs Huber, the 2016 champion with Carl Platt, and Simon Stiepjan, they started today 2 minutes and 19 off the pace, and nearly a minute ahead of their other team. Oh, problem here. Platt and Licata. Platt has an issue.
Well, the same thing happened, I think, with Sam Gaze. He also was off in that same section and lost the wheel of Kulhavi. Just a really deep rut. They were on the left side of this track and seemed to find themselves with no option other than try and ride their way through it. Just getting caught up. So this group was splitting up.
Maybe a bit of a sandy section. Sometimes you come around the corner, you just plug into it and to power through it. Now down the hill. Washed out, okay. Okay.
Just got caught really deep.
These are the scenes from stage one in the Hemel and Aarde Valley, the heaven and earth valley of the Overberg region. Around 115 kilometres from the city of Cape Town in a southeasterly direction, which is where we've come to after yesterday's prologue. And the riders making their way through this 112 kilometre stage. And this is Fumic and Avancini, the chase group, and Fumic again off the back of Avancini by a second or two, and this is the reason why. The pace set up front, Scots Tram, MTB Racing, Nino Schurter and Lars Forster are just absolutely dominating now. Look how tough it is.
Forster off the bike there, really rocky and technical.
Off the bike, running it up. As I say, this is onboard footage, so apologies, sometimes it isn't as clear as we would all like, but we get you the gist of what's happening out there.
Well, when you see where the course goes, they're really out in the wilderness and out in the mountains, and the signal that is available is not always ideal, so it's a real challenge to get the pictures out, but what we're able to bring you is just fantastic onboard footage from those e-bikes, also from our motorbikes and the helicopters and the way it's all put together. And these are the pictures that have been inaccessible for years, so pictures of any sort, whether they're breaking up slightly, is still fantastic.
And we have to remember we're in some seriously remote parts of the countryside, surrounded by some high mountains.
Yeah, so we bring you anything we possibly can, obviously as clear as we can get it. Low cloud, of course, sometimes doesn't help, but conditions absolutely perfect for these riders at the moment. Weather spot on the cloud, in fact, is closed in a bit more. It's thicker at where we are at the finish here in Hermanus.
Yeah, well, the forecast is right so far today. It was fairly sunny this morning. They're saying the cloud closing in. You see Fumic really struggling that same section. We just saw Forster have to get off and run his bike. Avancini just powered through it. But when you don't have the power, then you don't have the technical skills to go along with it.
He's been swallowed up by a tree. Yes. Schurter and Forster on the front, though. Power from this spare. They really are in fine shape early in the 2019 Absa Cape Epic.
Nino Schurter really is the type of rider, when he gets everybody on the back foot and gets a gap, you just see him click into that beast mode and say, right, now I'm going to take some serious time. I've got you all right where I want you. And he got a big point to prove after last year. He was really disappointed to be out of the race when his partner fell ill, and he was out after just a couple of days, so he's back with a vengeance.
And we saw that beast mode in 2017 when he sensed weakness with Cool Harvey and Christoph Sauser. They had a bit of a gap, and we saw exactly the same face. When he knew he had an advantage, he knew he had to drive it and get as much time as he could when the time was right.
It was this stage last year, I think, when we saw Sterneman struggling already in last year's race. He was the man who won it with Schurter in 2016. So Schurter back at 2017, beg your pardon, Schurter back to try and make amends of that. This, a look at our women's chase group. I think that is Wojtowska and Luti.
Yep.
Cross Spur.
Just surrounded there by some of our men's masters teams that they've been riding through their field.
We had some checks from them at the water point. That's the water point 3, where we that was what we called the solitaire water point at the 63 kilometer mark, and we had Annika Langval and Anne van der Breggen. They were 2 minutes 45 ahead of Ariane Luti and Maya Wachowska.
Foster was off his bike for a moment there, not sure what it was. Schurter's put his head down there. He says, get to my wheel because I'm off. I'm not holding on here. They don't want to lose a second here. Incredible power and rhythm from Nino Schurter.
It's a really fun section. If you're here for your leisure time, some incredible trails here in the Western Cape, in this valley, and what makes them fun is that they're really challenging, really technical. Some rocky sections down here. You can see a lot of fun to do on a longer travel bike. But if you're in full race mode, it's a big challenge. They'll be trying to manage their risk. They've got a bit of an advantage. They won't take too many risks on this downhill. We saw Lars Foster going absolutely, completely to his limit on the plum pudding section. They know that today is a long stage. They won't quite go that much to the limit.
Back with Luti and Wojtowska of the cross spur team on the chase. Langval and van der Breggen, we understand, are still up the road.
They're up the road, and they're 2 minutes at the water point. They were 2 minutes 44 up the road. Candice Lill and Adele Maroth and Jenny Stenenhagen and Riska Strauss, that's Silverback Fairtree and Summit Finn, were over 4 minutes back, 4.5 minutes back in fact. Norma Carver Ladies 10 minutes back, and Sabine Spitz significantly. Merendal West Rockveld over 10 minutes back. Ooh, struggling today.
Big gaps in the women's races. Investec Songo Specialized, on the way they dominated yesterday. If they stay safe and have no real issues, they'll be very, very difficult to hold back.
We're watching the second place team on the road, Cross Spur Racing.
The men's team just allowing them to get past safely. And we're back into this single trail with Fumic and Avancini.
Is our roving cameraman making sure that he's getting all the action.
Don't fall, David. It wouldn't look good.
We'll look forward to the highlights at the end of the day.
Oh, here's another mishap in one of these chase groups. In fact, that is the group from Wojtowska and Luti. That was some of our masters men, by the look of things, having a few problems on the side of the trail.
The helicopter looks like it's going to go and try and find Anne van der Breggen and Annika Langval.
No problem finding this pair. The Scots Tram pair are right on the front of the race. Nino Schurter and Lars Foster.
There's a nice spot for a picnic out along the trail. Maybe checking the beehives.
Beehives, yep.
Loading up on honey and then spreading it on the sandwich and watching the race come by.
What a nice spot to watch all the riders come past. A lovely afternoon. Because the back end of the field, of course, they left in their batches today, right down to K, and it'll take a long while for the riders to get today's stage done and dusted.
Well, that men's masters team there, got to be a little bit careful about sitting behind our cross spur ladies team.
Yes, especially
drafting
with the eyes
not
of the
allowed.
world. The eyes of the world
themselves with a half-hour penalty like we saw yesterday in the women's prologue.
And that's the chase group just coming through this little nice sweeping single track technical section.
Well, sweeping but rocky. You would not want to make a mistake down there when you see the type of terrain and the surface that they're riding over.
So at this stage you feel that Nino Schurter and Lars Foster have it all under control, but as we know, anything can happen over these sort of terrain. We've still got the Land Rover technical terrain to come. So that could play a role in the outcome today, who knows? But at this stage, they really are in dominant form.
As you said, anything can happen, and it's but there is one advantage to riding out front. They can ride at their own pace. Not only that, they're really on their own. They don't have anyone to ride behind, so they're going to see all the ruts, all the stones, at least ahead of time. Much better position than having to chase on the back foot.
And that was Fumic and Avancini we just flew over the top of, and now looking at the gap that has really opened up between them and the Scots Tram team, who are now way off the front. Forster and Schurter, they are coming into the water point number 5.
Yeah, this is Spook Fontaine farm. Beautiful farm, right perched on the top of this little hill, and hosting the water point 4. 4 it is. At 92 Ks.
That's a mini water point. This may be one you can afford to skip through, although the next one comes after the top of the next climb.
We'll get a time check with them once the next team comes through.
So 3 hours and 44 minutes of racing for these two to get through 83 kilometres of this course. It leaves them just 28 kilometres to go on this 111 kilometre stage. One more major climb to come. This is now Anneke Langval and Anna van der Breggen, our leading ladies team from Investec Songo Specialised. And they have a significant gap over the chasers. And they're in cruise control here on stage 1.
They are really impressive ride by them. Anna van der Breggen on the front here. Her first Absa Cape Epic and her first really big stage race on a mountain bike event. She's done the Cyprus Cup, but this is a different kettle of fish.
Well, if there was any doubt as to her newbie status and the question marks behind the kind of experience that you need to go into this race with, she's certainly putting that to rest. Any of those concerns are now out the window.
And we just saw our second place ladies team, Maya and Ariana, at the gap hovering somewhere around, we think, the 3-minute mark between the first two ladies teams. So these orange jerseys, I think, are going to be worn by the same people from beginning to end. And the challenge again for Anneke is not just to win the Cape Epic again, but to try and win every stage.
And she's going for a 5th win, so she will, if she all goes according to plan, she will equal Carl Platt and Christoph Saar's record 5 wins at the Absa Cape Epic. One thing that she has over them is her strike rate. It'll be 5 out of 5.
Yep.
But let's not talk too soon.
Yeah,
we don't want to jinx it.
Day 1, or stage 1 it is, but the other thing is she showed great form at Strade Bianchi last week.
I think we need to jinx it to give it some unpredictability, because they're just so strong, those two. And Anna van der Breggen, she's a very good cyclocross rider, done her share of mountain biking, but of course her first Cape Epic. But what better partner to have someone so strong as we start to get some time splits coming through. And Avancini and Fumic are now riding at 1 minute and 48 behind our leaders. Kulhavi and Gaze have come through another minute behind that at around 2 minutes 50. They've still got Ferraro and Porro with them as well, and small gaps, but still a group sticking together with Huber and Stibjan, Lakata and Platt just a couple of seconds further back.
Yeah, that group, 10 seconds spread between those riders in that group. Yeah, this is the big tick zone that Spook. I do think this is the...
That was Kulhavi and Gaze just stopping at the
is.
water point, where some of the others chose just to ride on through. So they got there first but did make a stop, and some of the others chose to just push on.
All of the professionals get their get a tech box at each water point, and they get to have access to it. So he may have gone in for some spares just to check that maybe he was needed to change a wheel or needed to get an extra CO2 canister or something like that.
Possibly even for Kulhavi. You never know, have a set of spare shoes in his tech box and just throw another shoe on, because we saw him very quickly tighten that cleat up when he stopped. But whether or not that's in exactly the right position is another matter. And there's little things that on a stage this length and difficulty makes a big difference.
Just some of the things we see in those tech boxes. It's not a very big tech box. They can't exactly carry an entire mobile workshop. The tech boxes have to be transportable. And we've seen entire saddle and seat post arrangements where the seat is perfectly set to the rider. So if they break a seat or anything like that, they can get to the water point and replace the seat post and the seat as one unit for the perfect setup, so there's no adjustment necessary. These are the kind of things that these pre-preparation things that go into preparing a team for the Absa Cape Epic. Another thing is to replace if there's a shifter damage or a derailleur damage. One of the things we've seen in tech box is an entire derailleur and shifter all in one go, where all the riders have to do is remove the entire unit, shifter and derailleur, and replace it and cable tie it to the bike, all pre-adjusted.
Orstovska and Luti now of Cross Spur Racing heading on their own up the trail in pursuit of Anneke Langval and Anna van der Breggen. I say pursuit, but I think they're just managing their efforts today. They know it's going to be, if they do get the better of those two, it's going to be a long game they're going to have to play and take their chances if and when they occur.
If you're this team and you had to adopt a tactic, it's probably quite likely that they'll say to each other that it's time to consolidate, make sure they don't go too far into the red, and there is no real hope that they're going to catch this two at the moment with all you know, what for what you could say, but they can only hope for a mechanical or a mistake by Anna van der Breggen.
In 4 years of the Absa Cape Epic, we've seldom seen Anneke Langval sit on the back and try and get out the saddle and stay with her partner. And Anna van der Breggen is showing incredible power and strength on the front here. And Anneke Langval, just the last few times we've seen her out of the saddle just to stay up, and perhaps you know, she's managed her partners brilliantly. Ariane Luti, she had 3 wins with Ariane and 1 with Kate Courtney last year. And now Anna van der Breggen, world and Olympic road race champion, is proving to be every bit a match for Anneke Langval.
Anna van der Breggen almost at some points seems almost unbeatable on the road. It's really hard to find a better rider. Certainly always in the top 3, there and thereabouts. And certainly Anneke has found her match. There's a massive engine there at the front.
There's a massive engine. We did see yesterday still a bit of a difference in technical ability when they come on the descents and the more difficult technical stretches that you know, Anneke, that's where she can actually get a bit of a rest.
Yep.
She gaps Anna off a little bit and then just looks over the shoulder, waits for her to come back. But Anna's got so much in the tank, she is able to power back across those gaps.
And these are the sections where they can really drive home that advantage on the flat open roads. And they'll make the absolute most of it, not missing a turn, making sure they keep that average speed as high as they possibly can.
So just talk about those technical abilities. Just see Anna there coming into the corner and the difference in the way they're lining up for the apex. And Anna actually missed it, stayed too wide, missed the apex, and Anneke taking it much better and coming right up alongside Anna. So just these little things that those things in the corners, the technical little descents. It's certainly something they can manage, and they've got plenty of time.
They've got a bit of a buffer, exactly. Yeah. They don't really have to. These subtleties they can probably work on. They can make back the advantage, but it could be their own doing at some point.
Now this is Foster and Schurter on the short section of Tar Road, and this means they are getting very close to the finish here. Just to illustrate the big gaps that have occurred after that second group, which is around 3 minutes behind this, 5 minutes and 40 seconds. Daniel Gesmeyer and his partner Jochen Kess, Hatherley and Beers, Hynek and Fergerhard are nearly 6 minutes back. There's an illustration of the split at 83.5 Ks. Fumic and Avancini, 149 down on Kulhavi and Gaze. No problem at all here for Schurter and Lars Forster.
Well, just one big climb to come and then gradually downhill to the finish. So these two really continue to forge ahead, and there are the gaps at that last water point at 83.5 kilometres. Schurter and Forster 1 minute 49 ahead of Fumic Avancini, and then that group behind led by Kulhavi and Gaze along with the Italians Ferraro and Porra from the Trek Selle San Marco team, 2 minutes 50. So a big buffer for the Scots Tram riders, the yellow jersey holders, winner of the Prologue yesterday. Just got to hold things together and they'll be in an even more commanding position, and just the way Nino likes it.
Absolutely. Lars Forster's done a lot of work on the front today. Nino putting his young partner out front and saying, let's see how you go on your first big marathon stage.
It's phenomenal to see how well the match they are, and it's always one of those poetry in motions things when you see the two teams really gelling well together, working well together, and just hitting their stride like this.
Well, what's going to be really interesting to see is how well Forster recovers from an effort like this. Sure, on day one matches Nino pedal stroke for pedal stroke, and you know, can drop the rest of the field, but can he do it again tomorrow? Can he back it up each day at a time? And that's going to be the intriguing part of a guy who's a newbie in a situation like this.
It is a critical thing, the recovery, and it's not. We've talked about people losing minutes, teams losing maybe even 10 minutes. When the riders can sense weakness, if they sense that Forster on day 3 or day 4 or even day 5 is struggling a little bit, they're going to absolutely put them to the sword. There's going to be no mercy whatsoever.
Well, at the moment they've got nearly 2 minutes over Fumic and Avancini, but do they now push on, maximise, try and win by 3, 4, 5 minutes? Or do they say, okay, we've got a good buffer today, we'll take that, we'll ease back, we'll just push the clutch in a little bit and think about recovery? It's something very difficult to do while you're out there. You've got the gap, you're feeling good, you've got that adrenaline rush, you keep pushing on, but you've got to be really careful, and it's about knowing yourself over a stage race like this, and that's what Forster does not know.
Well, there we go. Do they know what the extent of that gap? Do they know what's happening behind them? Are they well aware of exactly how big that gap is? Probably not. So, and knowing Nino Schurter, the way he dominates races, he will be trying to make that gap as big as possible. We're heading into the Land Rover technical terrain now as they go past, they come off this little descent, and they'll head down into this sensational piece of trail. And it'll be lovely to watch the very best in the world take on this section of the Land Rover technical terrain in the Hemel and Aarde single track. And as Neil alluded to earlier, this is a part of the world where mountain bikers can come and ride to their heart's content. Get yourselves a permit in Hermanus at one of the bike stores and come and ride here. Look at the devastation from the recent fires here. It was a couple of months ago. Absolutely devastating. They'll drop below the dam wall here and then into a really rocky technical terrain. In the tuck, Avancini in pursuit with Manuel Fumic, Cadel Factory Racing, nearly 2 minutes adrift of the leaders here, Scots Tram mountain bike.
And these two are caught in no man's land. We've got the leaders out front, that's Scots Tram MTB Racing, and this pair, the Cadel Factory Racing pair, are 1:49 down at that water point. And 2 minutes 50 on the next team. But the next team have a bit of a group with them. They've got Investec Songo Specialized, Trek San Marco, and 2 Bulls team. And a further 2.5 minutes down the road, we've got Alan Hathley and Matthew Beers. So let's hope that Jaroslav Kulhovi doesn't have any issues like he had before, where he needs that backup team, because they're a good 2.5 minutes behind.
Into this trail they go, Schurter and his partner Forster. So close on 2 minutes is the advantage over Cadel Factory Racing, who will relish this trail as well, that's for sure. Snakes down the valley. Rocky and technical with a sheer drop on the left-hand side at times. But as you can see, it has been on the upper side of this trail, devastated by the recent bushfires. Beautiful trail it is. Down a little bridge they built there to get over a little gap, and away they go. And even though they're at the sharp end with a big gap here, they'll be enjoying this, there's no question. That's why they ride. In the end, they do it because they love it, and Nino Schurter seldom misses an opportunity to show the enjoyment of riding trails like this.
It's one of his philosophies. He always says, have fun, get out there, enjoy it, and when you have fun, sometimes you win.
Well, it's also fun in a race like this when you're dishing out the pain and not on the receiving end like every team that's trying to chase these two down. It's always a lot more fun when you know you're going to come in and stand on the podium. See the baboons running around in the foreground.
Yeah, they want to
just getting over to have a look at. Nino Schurter's in town. He's the world champion.
Of course, they want to
get
a
worth
time
running
check.
over to the cliff and have a look.
see how the Canada. I think they're big. They're fans of Cannondales as well. I think they.
Little climb up, and then it'll be more flying down. They'll take that little left there, which will be the end of it, as we pop back to our leading women's team, Investec Songo Specialized, Langveld and Van der Breggen.
Now you see there's a men's team in front of them. They'll be catching up, and it's quite nice for them. They can use them as a bit of a carrot. You can look up the road, see a team up ahead, and use them as a bit of a goal up ahead.
2 minutes and 16 seconds now, the gap between Ulrich Avancini and Manuel Fumic, and the leaders Foster and Schurter. Porro and Ferraro, together with Platt, Lecata, Stibjan and Urs Huber, are 3 minutes and 40 back. Jaroslav Kulhavi and Sam Gay 3:54.
So they've Avancini and Fumic have built that gap out to 1:20 back to what we call the chase group, group 3 out on the trail. And Sam Gaze and Kulhavi, they're another 15-20 seconds behind the rest of that group after stopping at the last water point. We've got some chasing to do to get themselves back on terms with the rest of that group. But they really see this race slipping away from them. Schurter and Forster pushing on. So at the moment, Kulhavi and Gaze round about 4 minutes behind our leaders.
And a reminder that the Canada Factory Racing pair, Ulrich Avancini and Manuel Fumic, do not have a second team on the route. So serious mechanical for them could be very, very costly indeed, whilst Kulhavi and Gaze do have, they've got Beers and Hathley, and if things really go pear-shaped, they've got a chap called Sauser somewhere back there. He's pretty decent. It's Simon Andreasen.
We are looking to see where the Scots Tram backup team is. We haven't seen them.
Yeah, they're quite way off the pace. Yeah, they're in fact riding around about Andreasen and Sauser, Gert Haynes and André Fischneck. But yeah, perhaps 5-6 minutes down.
You know, mid-race they were just 2 minutes behind, but that was before the real action kicked off, so they are over 5 minutes behind at the moment.
Maya Wojtowska on the front here, steady, very comfortable rhythm behind her. Ariane Luthi, 3-time winner of the UCI women's category with Annika Langveld. They are managing the gap to Langveld and Van der Breggen and ensuring that there's no issues from behind. Candace Dill and Adelaide Morath, Jenny Stenach and Mariska Strauss, those pushing behind them. And as Neil alluded to a little bit earlier, not the best of days it seems for Nadine Reeder and her partner Sabine Spitz.
It's always hard to tell what could have happened. It could be a mechanical, it could just be an off day. So we'll catch up with them at the finish and see exactly what happened, why that 10 minutes opened up so fast.
Unfortunately, not able to bring you those crystal clear images from this little trail. Pity, because it is a sensational piece of riding. But the Land Rover technical terrain inside 15 k's from the finish is that's Lil and Morath. Candice Lil and Adelaide Morath have teamed Summit Finn. We think third place.
Yes, we could. We don't know where the other team is. Where Stenach and Strauss
are the other team.
That's a big worry for those two. Let's hope that they haven't had a mechanical or something, or it could just be the firepower of these two.
Yeah,
they've really got. You could call them cross-country specialists. They've got where it really counts on those steep rises. There may have been a chance that they could have opened up a bit of a gap on them. We can't speculate, but we can be sure that these two are on a good day. We've got Nino Schurter and Lars Foster. Foster leads the two through the trails.
Absolutely amazing. And again, burnt almost beyond recognition not too long ago. And there's been plenty of hard work done here to rehabilitate these trails and make them rideable. And Lars Foster on the front for the Scots Tram mountain bike racing team.
Most of this section is false flat downhill, a little wheelie over the hump there from Forster. So he's enjoying that, the fact that he's on his way to a stage win, almost certainly now barring a mechanical disaster, and pretty much all false flat downhill. Just one more little kicker to come, the Waterworks climb.
No gloves on Lars Foster, and Nino Schurter wearing those long mitts.
Yeah, the mountain bikers wear long mitts. It's not just, it's a bit of a hand protection thing. If you have to fix a puncture or anything like that, you can, it crashes as well, you get protection from the crashes. If you fix a puncture, it just helps to have a bit of extra coverage.
No, really surprising to see Foster riding
Yeah.
without gloves on. Really surprising in a race like this. 8 days of this rough terrain, and in particular, as Neil just mentioned, a protection. If you have a crash and a touchdown, you put your hands out and take the skin off the palm of your hand. That's curtains. So you're not going to be able to hold the handlebars. Oh, little bit of an off the trail there for Foster. Nino just taking over at the front.
Well, the ghostly riding through these blackened trees and ashen ground, but the trail very rideable and still great fun.
What's deceptive is how smooth these guys are. They are racing at full tilt at the moment in test, and you could see that from just the slight mistake that Foster. These are the best cross-country riders in the world, and for them to make a mistake means that they're pushing really hard.
Oh, they really are flying through these trails, so no let up. They know they're going to win the stage. They've got a massive buffer over around 2 minutes to the first chase, Avancini and Fumic, but no let up, keep pushing on.
That is, you've said, I mean, they're going at such speed here. These are twisty, windy trails. You get around the corner, hook up a handlebar on a little tree, and things can go pear-shaped pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's
these
easy
guys,
to lose.
Yep.
Just a minute can be lost just from the fall itself. And you can see how much the e-bike behind of Stefan Sam, how much that is leaning around the corners. We have to remember that the cross-country riders, the two up ahead, are riding tyres that are perhaps 2.2 inches wide, 2.3 inches wide. The e-bike has really fat tyres. E-bike up to 2.8
happens
inches.
to make a mistake, well, it's easy for him to pedal his way back on.
A little bit difficult to lift the bike, but he can.
He just doesn't want to get down into a little ditch or something, have to lift it out. The e-bike weighing in at over 20 kilograms.
But they've been a fantastic addition to the coverage of the Absa Cape Epic, putting you right in the box seat and watching the action. Unfortunately, we can't connect to them deep in that forest, but they'll be popping out fairly shortly. So Fumic and Avancini in second place, but nearly 2.25 minutes down.
Credit to these two. They've certainly been putting in a good effort, because they've managed to hold off the chaser group of Trek Salasamarco, the Bulls, both the Bulls teams, and Investec Songo Specialized. They've kept that gap more or less under control, around about 2.5 minutes or so, estimated by now, and that's some intelligent and some mature riding from those two.
Enrico Avancini, one of the very few of the leading riders to have a drop a seat post on his bike full time. His partner doesn't, but I don't think he'll need it here. But it's there if he needs it, as they try and limit their losses. Overall, close to 3 minutes if you add the 41 seconds from yesterday. And the battle behind them is going to be quite interesting for the third place on the podium, because Porro and Ferraro are coming to their own. The Trek Salis and Marco pair, Platt and Licata, Steve John and Uber, and Coolharvey and Gaze, who've had a busy, eventful day. Back with the leaders, not far from the finish. Once they come out of the Land Rover technical terrain, they've done that, they will have around about 8 kilometers to the finish. Brilliant images in between the gum trees here of the riders. As I say that, we lose the real clarity, but again, you can see how this fire was brought under control at just the right time. The properties in the region were under serious threat, houses and homes and
the
wildlife evacuated, and the wildlife, and it was devastating, very, very difficult to control, but well done to the volunteer wildfire services in the Western Cape. Cross Spur, I think it is, and this is the pair in their crosshairs, the leaders, Investec Songo Specialized in the women's race.
Now, this is a steep climb. You can see how you can always tell how slowly they're going, how steep it is, creeping up this really tricky ascent. Langveld just giving Van der Breggen the lead there, making sure that very aware of exactly each other's efforts, making sure that Van der Breggen is not putting out too much effort. Carefully watching out for each other's well-being.
One rider behind them, Jonathan Galante from France, Anthony Collet-Béon, his partner. Don't see them anywhere, his partner with him. This is the Hemel and Aarde single track. The road, just you can catch an eye of the tar road, which runs basically parallel to the single track all the way down into Hermanus.
Well, if you ever get a chance to visit Hermanus and visit the Aarde Valley, there's some amazing wine farms. It's a beautiful area. It's a really special region. Really feel quite enclosed when you're staying in those wine fields. You feel quite enclosed by the mountains and all the vineyards around them. And the southern coast wines, some of the most tasty in the world.
Well, you're on to my plans when the broadcast is over today anyway.
Yeah, Creation Wines is the first water point today. Spook, Fontaine, the last of them, and they are very, very well-known wines. Newish wineries, modern wineries. Luti and Wojtowska on their own, doing the job and getting the business done here on stage 1.
Well, they'll be looking to approach water point 4 at the moment, so that would be the 83-kilometer mark. They're also reaching the final stages of this stage.
More of this wonderful single track for Schurter and Foster to enjoy.
I think even in the heat of the battle, they still take time just to revel in the single track that they ride. Often when you talk to them, they'll become off battle scarred and they'll be dirty and they'll be absolutely exhausted, and they'll tell you how fun the single track was.
Yeah, a few years ago, Nino Schurter came out in November and rode the Wines to Wales 3-day stage race right at the back. Well, right at the back, but a long way further back than he normally rides. He rode with Scots South African representative Jockey Prinsloo. He stopped at all the water points. He had an absolute ball. He just loved it, and it was incredible to see him riding in amongst the weekend warriors, and he was stopping for photographs and selfies everywhere.
Well, he certainly loves his job.
Yep. And it doesn't get much better than this for Nino Schurter and Lars Forster, as they head towards what looks to be a second victory in a row here on the Absa Cape Epic in 2019. Meanwhile, cross spur racing, Maja Wojtowska and her first Absa Cape Epic alongside Ariane Luti.
They've got a tactic, the two of them, by the looks of it. Ariane seems to be taking the lead on the climbs, and this is a tactic where the weaker rider, or the so-called weaker rider, you could hardly call her a weak rider, but a so-called weaker rider would take the lead on the climbs to ensure that the faster rider doesn't blow them up too fast or to go too hard so the other rider goes too deep into the red zone.
Manage the pace, yeah.
It's clear that Maja Wojtowska is one of the best in the world. We know this from her results, and it's showing out on the trails today.
You were wondering where the Scott factory, Scott SRAM backup team is. They're 14 minutes behind. That's Andre Frischnecht and Gert Haynes.
The irony is that it's just as likely that some disaster will befall a backup team.
Yeah, exactly. There's no reason why it shouldn't happen to them. Beers and Hathley 6 minutes behind the leaders, but only 3 minutes behind the Gaze and Kulhavi, the other significant backup team there. And the dynamic in the Bulls team, Platten, Lecarte, Steepjan and Uber led two co-leading teams there. And after yesterday's stage, well, Uber and Steepjan were the faster of the two by a minute. So you feel at the moment that Platten and Lecarte will be riding as backup to Urs Uber and Simon Steepjan.
Well, it's always a difficult thing in the team camp. At the end of the day, they try to work out the tactic for the next day. Riders always do say, let's take it day by day, and they do. At the end of the day, they'll regroup and they'll think, what are we going to do tomorrow? Who are we going to protect a team? Are we going to back up a team? And when two teams finish together like this, it's pretty clear that they're of similar ability.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're going to be making any calls too soon as to who the backup team and who the leading team is going to be. There's a lot that can happen between now and next Sunday, the grand finale. Champs-Élysées mountain biking, Val de Vie Wine Estate.
Outskirts now, they're closing in on the finish here in Hermanus. They'll have a little section of tar to ride on, and then pop out on the frontier. They go through Ferncliff Nature Reserve, I think, as well.
I was hitting the residential area of Hermanus. Any of the residents will come out and have a look and see the world's best passing them. Quite a treat for the town to be able to see the world's mountain biking, the very best in the world, passing their doorstep.
First thing is they'll look up, because the helicopter will give them an idea that there's something going on here around Hermanus. If they weren't aware already, now they will. And then they'll look down and see a flash of yellow as these two men fly past them. Schurter and Forster. They'll climb up.
It's always a special thing to go and watch a stage race from the sidelines and to see that yellow jersey go past. You're watching the Tour de France. The children come out and they just want to see that that yellow tunic streak past.
Well, here they may not be aware as they see the yellow jerseys come past. They're watching the world champion and the European champion dominating this men's race, and they'll be starting to enjoy the feeling of knowing they're getting close to the line, now to celebrate, hands in the air, posting up for the photos.
Talked about the jersey, Nino Schurter. It's one can't remember really when he did wear his standard trade team jersey. Each trade team have got their standard colours, their standard design, and Nino's either always been wearing the World Championships jersey, or he's been wearing his Swiss Championships jersey, or the yellow jersey.
Yeah, it's a lot like on the road. Peter Sagan, who's either been in his national champion or world champion jersey, or a green jersey. He's hardly ever worn a trade team standard jersey, a lot like Nino, and they're very similar in profile in mountain bike and road cycling.
And in fact, maybe a little bit more, even more detail, Nino will probably never will wear a trade jersey, because he'll always, for as long as he's riding, he'll wear the World Championship stripes on his sleeve. And there's not many riders in the world that can wear that.
Look how close he is to Lars Forster there, getting everything out of this opportunity to open the gap.
We're at the finishing line now, and there's a buzz of excitement. All the riders all the spectators have got their phones up. They've got Instagram Live. Remember to follow the race on www.cape-epic.com. Catch all the live action.
Well, our venue announcer, Paul Kay, getting extremely excited, getting the crowd going, because they're anticipating the arrival of these two. They're only a matter of minutes out from the finish line now. They're all practicing their own victory salutes, the Icelandic thunderclap as well, to welcome the riders home after this 111 kilometre stage one. 2,700 metres of vertical gain they've had.
They swing off the tar road for a little section, and a little bit of dirt road now, and then they'll have a short section of single track. Here we go.
We can see how hard they're going. Just the bodies are rocking and putting in maximum effort. It's like the resort ponies when they've smelt home. They are absolutely at full speed.
And they are way ahead now of second place Henri Gavancini and Manuel Fubik. That gap growing all the time. The scent of home for Schurter and Forster. Stefan Saab doing all he can to stay with him as well.
Well, we hope he's still got some juice left in that battery. Be a bit of a job if he had to get that bike home.
He's looked up at the helicopter saying, you guys catch the pictures now, because I'm not staying with them. They're going too fast. But this is it, drilling it home. Forster spent a lot of time working on the frontier.
Well, certainly if he had been suffering along with Nino Schurter, he would not be making the pace on the front. He'd be sitting back and trying to ride the slipstream. So Forster really doing a fantastic job today, backing up what they did yesterday in the short 20 kilometre prologue, and they're really stepping it up on this roughly 4.5 hour stage it'll end up being for these riders. Turning back onto the asphalt road now.
It's great for the morale of the team to know that Forster's on the pace, and not only physically he's up to it, but that morale boost can make a big difference to the coming days. Just a good mood in the camp, everyone's happy. They've just got to keep it together for the next few days.
Unbelievable speed. This is literally inside the last kilometre or so of the stage. Nino Schurter and Lars Forster drilling it home for the Scots Tram MTB team.
If you can see that closely, you'll be able to see the speed on the handlebar of the Bulls bikes. They're going over 40 kilometres an hour.
Well, there you go, 36 now, but the road flattened out, that little downhill. They were indeed touching 40 kilometres an hour. So enjoying the higher speeds on the smooth road. Probably love the single track a little bit more, but a little bit of nice relief after a long, tough stage. Just a few speed humps between them and the finish line, and they'll come and take their second stage win in a row.
I'll be looking to lock up that suspension. The suspension bikes have been working overtime today with those super rocky trails, especially on the Land Rover technical terrain section. They'll lock those forks and they'll lock the rear suspension out to get maximum power straight to the pedals and straight to the rear wheel. You can power along, take as much time from their rivals as they possibly can. Every second counts at this early stage in the race. Every bit of buffer is important.
Still swapping turns with real intent, these two. Like a two-man team's time trial along this road section, squeezing out every little bit, maximise the time gain over all their rivals. And where we've seen things go slightly wrong for others like Coolharvey and Gaze, these two have not made a mistake really all day and completely in control.
On that last bit of section of dirt road, this is Avancini and his partner Manuel Fuic of Cadel Factory Racing. 2 minutes and 16 at the last check was the gap to the leaders. And they're also putting everything out there to try and limit that lead, but they've got a way to go.
Very interesting to see how much time Avancini spends on the front. If Fumic does come around to help him, that'll give us an indication as to what the state of Manuel Fumic. We thought initially that he might be struggling in the stage compared to the efforts of Avancini. So let's have a look and see what they're doing. And they're coming in, they're very close, going past the graveyard.
It's the dead centre of town.
It had to come up. Someone, one of us is going to say it.
Someone had to say it.
Yeah, there's the finish. You can see Hermanus High School is on there. Oh, and who says he doesn't enjoy it? Every opportunity he gets, Nino Schurter. Little tail whip as he pops over a jump there.
Nino Schurter will be super pleased with his teammate today. So the disappointment of last year, you'll be relieved and elated that
just gone through 1 kilometre to go.
Yep. We saw the 1K to go sign.
And this again, look at the burn here. There's the BMX track. How cool! Fantastic here in Hermanus. They love their cycling and their mountain biking, and they built a great little track.
But Nino wishes he could be on those jumps to do a quick tail whip just before he comes into the finish.
And again, you can see the devastation of the fire, how close it came to town here, right on the edge of town.
And we see the Hermanus High School, the start-finish venue, the race village on the right-hand side.
Amazing images from the bike of Stefan Sam here, of the leaders.
Yeah, credit to Stefan Sam to be able to stay with the guys. He's a skillful rider on his own. And it's great to have these e-bikes getting us really in the thick of the action, get a rider's eye view of what it's like to ride to the world's best.
Absolutely.
You can sense the energy. There's a lot more people standing with their phones up. The photographers are here. Even the mechanics, the team mechanics are here waiting to take these bikes back for a much-needed service after 112 kilometers.
Onto the tar road now. They're just less than 500 meters from the finish here at Hermanus High School. A little glance over his shoulder there. There's the crew camp, and they'll roll down here, turn right, and head into the finish here at Hermanus High School. Phenomenal performance by Nino Schurter and Lars Forster of Scots Tram mountain bike. Off the tar, into the village, and they'll sweep through the left-hander here and close out a great stage one victory It is Lars Forster and Nino Schurter take stage 1 at the Absa Cape Epic in 2019. Magnificent performance by the yellow jerseys. 4 hours and 24 minutes, there and thereabouts, great riding.
Well, now they can sit back and start to appreciate the damage they've done to the rest of the field, and I think we're going to see a gap of somewhere around 3 minutes back to Fumic and Avancini, still making their way in. They're just themselves on the outskirts of town here.
There's the
fist
team
bumps all round for Team Scots Tram.
What you don't see is in the background is between 5 and 8 members of each team. So for every 2 riders, there's 5 or 8 support staff. And it'll be the massage people. There'll be the soigneurs that'll make sure they're adequately hydrated and fueled. There'll be the mechanics. The mechanics alone have a massive job to completely strip and rebuild. Nino, a very happy man.
Well, fantastic. And Lars Forster, I mean, his first big marathon stage of the Absa Cape Epic, and he's ridden it like an old vet. Here is Ulrich Avancini and Manuel Fumic.
They've done very well today. They've held up that chasing group, and they've managed their losses. And it's very easy to get disappointed and to get the morale down and to just not put in that much effort. It does require a very strong mind to be able to keep it together and maintain that advantage over a chasing group like the likes of who are chasing them, Cool Harvey and Gaze.
Absolutely. Well, they are experienced, these two. They've ridden, completed 2 Absa Cape Epics together, and this is their 3rd as a team. And they know all their highs and lows of this event. They've worn the yellow jersey both the years they've been here previously, and they've worn it quite often early in the week. What they want to do is wear it till late, and this is Cool Harvey and Gaze. So they have made a huge effort to close the gap. They're out of that group of 4 teams, and they are closing that gap rapidly. What a powerful last 5 or 6 kilometers from this pair. They're closing up on Cadel Factory Racing.
I think after that crash, it really took Gaze quite a while to come back to his senses. I mean, we saw him straightening his helmet. I think he really landed quite heavily and quite possibly a nasty knock to the head, and that really does slow you up. It affects your concentration. It's hard to stay on the trail. And it seems now he's sort of come through that and is finding his legs again and his head. And they've been able to close this gap down. Also probably a bit of an indication that Fumic was suffering earlier, and Avancini has had to look after him a bit in the final kilometres of this stage.
A left-hander and then the right-hander into the finish straight. Here they come. On the right is Ulrich Avancini and Manuel Fumic. Cadel Factory Racing finished 2nd on stage 1 of the Absa Cape Epic, and it is probably just under 3 minutes. 2 minutes and 51 seconds is the gap. So they have managed it over the last while. It has gone out a little, but not by as much as perhaps we were expecting when we saw them earlier in the day. It's 2nd place for them, and that overall lead will be now around about 3 minutes and 30 seconds.
Oh, well, they've held their tempo really quite well, and like you said, managed their team.
And Vestec Songo Specialized, well, they have equally worked tremendously hard. Gaze with a fall, and Cool Harvey with issues with his cleats, had to stop and tighten them. So they've lost time there, at least a minute, minute and a half. But they pop out onto the tar road here, having fought and ridden really hard over the back end of the stage.
Well, they're actually off the back of the rest of this group, so they haven't had a problem.
There we go, okay. So they are off it. Here we go. This is the race for the 3rd spot on the podium. The Bulls are in there. Trex Ellis and Marco in there. It looks like it's the Bulls pair. And this is the Bulls pair of Uber and Licata, who will be on the podium in 3rd place. Good ride from them as Uber and Steve John behind them. Trex Ellis and Marco Porro and Damiano Ferraro.
A bit of a sprint we saw from Carl. He positioned himself really well. He's done this before, we can tell. He knows exactly where he's got to be when he comes into that start chute.
You just see Sam Gaze hanging his head as he comes over the line. It's been a bad day out for the Investec Songo Specialised team. The crash, the mechanical issue with the shoe of Cool Harvey. But very happy men from the Bulls team, Licata and Platt sprinting in for a 3rd place, a fine 3rd place on the stage. I mean, they've suffered all day. Platt looked in trouble for quite a while being dropped, but really fought their way back and rewarded with a podium spot on the stage.
Absolutely, they stayed in the game. Impressive for the 41-year-old Carl Platt. Had his birthday a few days ago, and yeah, he's...
It's lovely to see Simon Steve John, the youngster in the team, and there it is, etched on their faces, on their kit. They are absolutely shattered. Henri Cavancini and Manuel Fumic. This is what the Absa Cape Epic is all about, putting it all out there in every effort to get to the finish. Smile from Usuba. They're delighted. I think the Bulls will be very pleased with the way it's gone today. Very pleased. If we look from our commentary position, we can see the delight in the winners' enclosure here. They really are chuffed with what they've done today.
Well, it goes back to what we were saying about the marathoners versus the cross-country riders. They just seem to be able to manage their efforts very well. They're more of a diesel engine type of rider, each one of them. And the most important thing is they can manage the damage. When something goes wrong, they don't panic. They just keep in the game. And that's one of the most important tactics that's won Carl Platt 5 victories.
That's brilliant. The netball courts creating a bit of Absa Cape Epic magic art here. Hermanus High School. Their first matrics, in fact, graduated through here in 1941. Although the school can date back to the very early days when Hermanus Peters came out to live in these parts. And it was decided in the early 1900s that Hermanus Peters Fontaine was a little bit too difficult for the locals to deal with, so they made it Hermanus only.
Having a quick chat about
starts, yeah.
Post-mortem discussions, very important when they discuss exactly what went wrong, what they could improve.
Great to see so many people out here. Monday it is, and look at the crowds. Of course, holiday time here. Schools are on holiday. It's an opportunity for the youngsters and their parents to come and watch the best in the world.
I think we saw a Brazilian soccer supporter shirt there. You spotted that? I'll be very pleased with Vincini's performance today.
Yeah, they've got Abra Azevedo as well, leading the Grandmasters with Bart Brenchens. Brazilians are regular visitors to the Absa Cape Epic, and they bring such great enthusiasm and joy to the event. Great characters.
Well, the Brazilians, great travellers throughout the world, and wherever their sports people are performing, they'll have the fans get out there and on the side and with their flags and cheer them on. And it's always fantastic to see, whether it's mountain biking or you see them at surf competitions. They're absolutely everywhere, just supporting their favourites.
Right, so we can go down to the winners' enclosure and hear from some of the contenders or the top performers today. And Laura is out there. Laura Mesco, over to you.
Enrique, Manuel, your faces speak by themselves, but please tell us, how was today's stage for you?
Well, it was a long day. The field was quite hectic and stressy, you know. Everyone was still kind of had enough power left, you know. It was just the beginning of the stage, and everyone was chasing hard, and there were so many fightings about position, so it was quite hectic at the beginning. And then I would say after the hot spot, after 50k, there was a group of Scots and Specialized, or that was the water point, and then they made the move. We were chasing back, and then at one point we were just 4 teams, and from there on I think the race started in a way. And then, I don't know, Scott was playing a few games, and we didn't really want to get involved in that, and so we were riding consistent and finished second. It's all okay, all in place, happy with the result.
Enrique, could you expect so strong Nino and Lars today?
I mean, they're just investing quite a lot early in the race. They look strong today, but honestly, no, it's not scary. Thinking about the 8 days, let's see. I mean, Lars is a world-class rider, as I said yesterday. Nino is probably the best ever. But my motivation is quite high, you know, for the week. And to be honest, you know, would be nice to have some microphones on the bikes, and then people could see who is the real Nino. But anyway, I'm gonna show him little by little, and it's a long week. And I'm really confident, you know, on this kind of race. I really trust my legs. I really trust my partner. I trust my team. And again, we're gonna make this race nice. I think this is our main goal. And as I said, nobody scares me on this race.
As we have a microphone now, what do you mean with real Nino?
I mean, he just gives shit to every rider on the peloton, you know. Nobody knows this side of him, and I really hate that, you know. And I'm a guy that worked quite hard to get on this level, to get on this point of a professional career, you know. And he's always like giving shit to every rider that scares him or is just around him. He likes to be the big boss, and he is the best rider. But honestly, as I said, on this race, you know, he's not the captain of the boat, and I'm not too scared of him. And it's a long week, and I hope that we're gonna have like a nice fight on the next few days. And little by little, you know, he's gonna show his face as always.
In a positive note, are you happy with this first test of the legs?
No, of course we're happy, and like Aarde just said, you know, there's the first stage. I mean, there are 6 more days to go, and this is just the beginning, you know. And I mean, in the end, everyone is quite strong at the beginning, you know, but I mean, we know that already. We've completed 4 epics already, and now, I mean, it's a long week, so let's see, day by day.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks very much to Laura there, getting down to business with the Cadel factory racing pair. There was clearly issues out there, Robbie.
Well, we heard it from the horse's mouth, and you know, Laura asking the hard-hitting question. She didn't let that go until she got it out of Avancini, and you know, it sounds like it's a real psychological battle out there. And for mine, Nino has struck a big blow. He struck a nerve, and he's getting under the skin of his rivals. He's not just riding them out of the wheel. And you know, Avancini, he doesn't like it. Obviously, he said he doesn't like how Shirt is carrying on and what he's saying, but that's all part of the competition, and Nino's got one up.
We saw Laura there having a chat to the bulls. And this
for my motivation.
Oh, here we go.
And yeah, now we finished today on the podium, and it was such a joy, and it's also a big relief for myself.
And this gives you extra confidence for the rest of the week?
Yeah, for sure. We are still at the beginning of the race. It was a tough one, tough stage, as we expected, but yeah, we go day by day. That is now a really good sign for us that we still have like our engines running. And I think, yeah, I mean, if we can do it every day like this, that would be really good. And but we also have to take care of ourselves. It's taking a lot out of us, these hard stages. But yeah, I think that was a proper stage and a good stage for us. And third, it's, I mean, I was actually not expecting this today because we had like a different tactic. We were trying to come from the back to the front, and but yeah, I mean, we actually did it. We got all even to the podium. So tomorrow we will see, make another tactic, and maybe that works out again.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, that's Alvin Lecarte and his partner. I wanted to say Christian Hynek because we've been saying that for so many years, but Carl Platt. And they'd be pretty pleased, as Alvin said. Not quite going to the plans that they'd sought to effect today, but third place. They'll be happy with that.
Neil, have you ever come across that sort of animo between teams or riders in the mountain biking world before, like we heard from Avancini about Nino Schurter?
Well, it's always encouraging to know that it is actually pure war. And we did say that it was going to be war, and now we know it is. And we've seen some animosity definitely in the past, in fact, from Carl Platt and Bart Brenchens, in fact, when Bart was racing in the elite category. There was a bit of animosity at one of the water points. There was a bit of a move that Bart made that Carl didn't necessarily agree with. You've talked about the tactics at the water point, and maybe Bart pushed those tactics perhaps arguably a little bit far, and we heard some choice words there. So for us as an audience, it's fantastic to see that these guys are absolutely fighting tooth and nail, that everything is right on the limit, because when the nerves are fraying, it means that everything is really at 100%.
Well, it seems Nino is using everything at his disposal. I mean, he's physically the strongest. He's shown that along with Lars Forster, but he's playing that psychological game. And elite sport is the combination of physical and psychological. And Nino, I think if you asked him about what Avancini says and what was set out on course, he would just say, yeah, it's part of it, with a smile on his face. He'd be really enjoying the fact that he has gotten under his skin, because that's going to annoy him all week. And it's up to Avancini if he can draw on that and improve his performance. Here's the Australians coming in, Cameron Ivory and Brendan Johnson. So a good ride from the guys. They've been moving up all day. They're 14 minutes behind at the finish, but they have moved through quite a lot of teams. A bit of a slower start, but a good finish from the Aussies.
Aussie champion there as well. So they've gone nicely, and what we will see today is the true reflection of the Absa Cape Epic after the prologue yesterday. It's sort of it's the playing field gets leveled a bit more today as the marathon stages unfold. Frischneck gets across the line there with Gert Haynes, and one of the Villiers teams rolls in as well. In fact, both the Villiers teams. So
Villiers teams had a bit of bad luck. They had a puncture early on and can absolutely destroy a day when you've had punctures so early in the stage. You missed that front group. You missed that so-called train.
Young South African team here, Mbuko Giant, Marco Hubert and Nicole Carstens had a really good start to the best finishing team in the Tankwa event a couple of weeks ago. So they're looking to race for the red. And this is Tristan de Lange and Vincent Dawn. Tristan de Lange, the Namibian champion. Let's go down to Nino Schurter, Lars Forster. Laura has them there.
Congratulations for today's victory, second victory in a row here in Absa Cape Epic. For you, Lars, that you're a newbie, how is the feeling?
Yeah, it is great. I didn't know what to expect. Of course, yesterday I knew we are one of the strongest in this distance. So yeah, I was yesterday happy to take the win. Today I have not much experience with marathon racing, but I had a pretty good feeling, and Nino said, just stay on my wheel and everything comes good, and I'm happy, yeah.
And how?
That's statistic for him. 2 stages at the Cape Epic, 2 wins.
So now he's here.
Yeah.
And what are you gonna do tomorrow?
Yeah, we will see. Taking day by day, and now we have a good recovery, and yeah, tomorrow full gas again.
How did you see the rivals today?
Yeah, it was a fast start. It was quite hectic at the beginning. It was a bit difficult to get in position, but then mid-race through it got a bit harder, and yeah, we twice got a gap on the climbs. We probably been the strongest team at the climbs, and yeah, then we got away with Cannondale, and we also were able to drop them, so it was a pretty cool race, yeah.
Enrique Avancini, he was not very happy here at the finish. Did you have some stress inside the favorite group?
Yeah, they didn't want to lead with us, and so we had no other choice. That's yeah, we don't take someone with us, especially if they are second in the overall. They have also to work, and if they think they can just ride with, then they have to search another team for that.
Okay, so good morale for tomorrow, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
The confidence of the race leaders, isn't it? The Scots Tram MTB pair, Lars Forster and Nino Schurter, giving their side of a little bit of what went on out there.
Always 2 sides to every story, and you know, Nino really shrugging it off and say, listen, they didn't want to ride and help set the pace, so I told them in no uncertain terms, find someone else to do that. I'm not sure that was his exact words that he would have used to the other team out there.
Well, let's hope for that microphone on the bike that Enrique Avancini was asking for. See exactly what those words were, and I completely agree that it's all two sides of the story. We did see early on that that the Cannondale Factory Racing guys weren't taking an initiative to chase. It was up to them. They're the ones that should essentially be attacking. The tactics of the race naturally would say that the yellow jersey can ride defensively and the attackers should attack the yellow jersey. Maybe.
So it would have been that moment we saw on that farm track when Lars Forster was up the road with Manuel Fumic, and the other two were talking to each other, so it wasn't friendly banter going on at that time, and that would have been what Avancini was alluding to, and you know, really went down not well.
Yeah, he wasn't asking what the coffee was like in Brazil, that's for sure. So there's a look at the stage 1 today as we flick over to the next phase, and Hathley and Beers 8:56 down for Specialized Foundation. The leaders in the Absa African jersey competition, Robach and Losa inside the frame there, just over 10.5 minutes back.
Spare a thought for Hynek and Vegerhaug. Vegerhaug, the youngster, was on the pace, really riding in the very front, and a little bit of little bit of an implosion there. The young rider not quite used to riding for 4 hours.
It looks like he definitely found his limit today, and that's what it's like for a lot of these cross-country guys who come into this sort of marathon-oriented race. Even though it's classed as a cross-country stage race, they're really marathon-length stages, and especially when you need to back them up day after day. So if you have what Fagerhorg had today already blowing up, losing 8.5 minutes, then things could get worse over the next couple of days with more long and tough stages.
That's where you start seeing the likes of Carl Platt, the experienced guys like Platt and Alban Lecata, where if they're able to hold their own today, it bodes well for the week. They're able to handle those explosive efforts and still come out on the podium.
Right, that's Hermanus right up high above Rotary Drive. Lovely view over the town of Hermanus. Again, it's like a moon landscape due to those fires. Now let's go down to the winners area and hear from the Absa Africa jersey wearers, Matt Beers and Alan Hatherley.
Hi, Matt, Alan. Hi. You're wearing this red jersey. Today was the first big test for the legs. How was it?
Yeah, it was a tough day. Yeah, unfortunately, somebody clipped my derailleur in the start, so the shifting wasn't so good all day. Yeah, I only realized how bad the shifting was when I tried to go to the 50 with the Eagle. And it went into the spokes, and then the chain came off, and it was just a disaster. So we did it a few times, so we had to chase back a bit, and I think we burned some matches there, and that was where we lost the front guys. But all things considered of how the day went, we're happy with how it went, and hopefully we can make up some more time at some point. But for the African jersey, we put some more time into that category, so we're happy with that.
Did everything go as you expected, apart of the mechanical? But how did you see the rivals also?
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of guys that shouldn't have been at the front who are only coming in now, and that's very frustrating. You see, but that's the epic. Everyone's trying to be at the front, and it's super aggressive. But yeah, it was a good route. It was really hard, and I knew a little bit from 2017, so that was quite nice. But yeah, it was a great experience. I think for Alan, we'll just get better. First time racing, it's a big adjustment. There's no other race in the world that is this like atmosphere and the riders. So yeah, I think as you go, you gain more respect. Everyone knows who's who, and yeah, it'll get better.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, we forget that Alan Hatherley, world champion that he is in the under-23, South African cross-country champion, he's on his first journey around the Absa Cape Epic, and more mechanical issues for them today. Pity for them.
Well, that's typical of a race like this. There's 700 teams out there. There are literally thousands of stories about what happened to who throughout the day, and Hatherley, he said very early on, out of the start, someone clipped his derailleur, probably bent the derailleur hanger just very slightly, and it kept throwing his chain off once he got up to his great big, the 50 cog on the rear, on the SRAM Eagle, and it cost him all day long.
What's we should note to his credit, and to in fact both of their credits, is they only lost 9 minutes. And that's pretty much a catastrophic thing for your gears to go. You really need your bike to be working 100%, and even 90% isn't good enough. But judging by the pace that the front guys are riding.
So let's go to the presentation, and these are our leading teams on stage one.
See Schurter and Avancini are standing at opposite
they couldn't get further away from each other.
So up onto the podium. It'll be a great source of delight for Carl Platt. Alban Lecata won a stage last year. I think it was stage 3, which was a fantastic effort for me. You had a long time since he last won one. Carl Platt hasn't won one for quite a while, but to be on the podium for him now is a great achievement after a disappointing day yesterday. Cadel Factory Racing, again second as they were yesterday.
Normally Avancini's so happy to be on the podium, always a really big grin on his face. Not today, after the way he's feeling about his run-in with Nino Schurter.
It's still bubbling, isn't it? And Fumic, you can see they're trying to manage it. He's the younger guy, the Brazilian, bit volatile, and he's saying, just we've got to channel that anger and that energy into racing.
Well, you have to remember these are all Type A personalities, all killer instinct guys, so we shouldn't expect anything less.
There we go. The podium as Schurter and Foster win for the second day in a row and cement their place in the yellow jersey. Firmich in second, and Bulls legends Platt and Licata, the marathon guys, still in the mix.
It's been 15 years we're seeing that name at the top of the leader list.
So they'll have the presentation of the jersey shortly. We did catch a glimpse before we came to this of the cross spur team of Wojtowska and Luthi chasing in towards home. They're in second place today on the stage in the women's race, with Langval and Van der Breggen, the race leaders of Investec Songo Specialized, comfortably ahead.
I'm pleased to welcome back on stage Chief Executive of Corporate Investment Banking Absa, Mr. Charles Ruston.
Now the presentation of the yellow jerseys.
Sponsored overall leaders Zebra Strike yellow jerseys. Ladies and gentlemen, the winners of your prologue on Sunday and the winners of stage 1 today. It is Scots Tram MTB Racing's Milo Schurter and Lars Foster.
Yellow once more for Foster, the European champion. That's the jersey he's wearing. One in Glasgow in August last year, and then Schurter's incredible ride on the home trails at Lenzerheide last year to take the World Championship. Get those arms in and zipped up. Well, the battle lines are drawn between the leading contenders. And as we say, Neil, that's what it's about. You get the idea. These guys, there's no, this is outright war out there for them.
Nobody's getting cuddly with Nino.
Yep. You won't let you. So there we go. The podium for our men's race. Now we await the arrival of our leading women's team. 2 minutes and 35 was the lead. Oh, we're going to see the presentation of the Masters jerseys as well, perhaps? No. So there we go. 2 minutes and 51 was the gap on the stage. Licata and Platt 4:09, Uber and Steve John there and thereabouts. Ferraro and Porro likewise, and Kulhavi and Gaze 4:23.
No, doing well to limit that damage. It could have been absolute catastrophe. Two things went wrong at almost exactly the same time. For them to only lose 4.5 minutes, credit to them. That's how you manage damage.
It could have been a whole lot worse. I mean, Gaze came off at a fairly innocuous part of the course, but he went down obviously fairly heavily, and just trying to come back. The problem for Kulhavi that cost them upwards of 45 seconds again, really put them on the back foot. So they've got a lot of work to do, and around just over 6 minutes down now overall. 6:13 they'll be overall behind Schurter and Foster.
It's important for we saw Gaze crossing the line with his head hanging down, and it's really important for him to get his spirits up and not to take it too much to heart. 4 minutes is not a lot of time in this race. He is used to winning and being at the front, and this race is all about being able to not be on the front foot all the time. It's being able to manage what it's like on the back foot.
You can't carry that with you.
No, you've got to be disappointed at the time, but then quickly let it go and move on.
Yeah, and he's used to perhaps having a disappointment on a one-day race, a cross-country race, and then moving on. Now he's racing every day here, and it's perhaps not going quite according to plan. You cannot let that bog you down as you go on. Hynek and Fagerhout also managed obviously a difficult day. They were up there early on, and Fagerhout slipped further back as the day progressed, 8:32 down.
A good spirit in the Bulls camp. We've got the Bulls youngsters in the top 10 running.
Three teams in the top 10.
3 teams in the top 10. Very good mood in the camp. That's hopefully they keep the cork in the red wine for the end of the week rather than the beginning. And I think they're on a good thing. Good team.
Jochen Kess and Daniel Gismeyer from Centurion Voda. Gismeyer was in yellow last year going into this stage, but a little different this year.
We expected a bit more from Rohrbach and Lorza. I think that we thought, with looking at the shape of Lorza, looking very skinny going into the race. Rohrbach obviously doing fantastically well in the last few editions. His best is second, so perhaps later in the week we'll see a bit more of a shine from those two.
Well, after what we heard post-finish from Avancini about Schurter and that clash out on the trails, the clash seems more significant for Avancini than it does for Schurter. He wasn't really too bothered about it at all. But the secondary tactics that play out within the race now, let's say that Schurter and Forster have a mechanical issue, or we know certainly who's going to force the pace when that happens, and there'll be no holds barred for the rest of this week of racing.
Certainly the gentleman's agreement has been torn up and thrown in the bin.
Yeah, and obviously what will happen is, Schurter probably wasn't fully aware of the extent of Enric Avancini's words. So he'll either see it or get back to him.
We better get him in here and play him the recording.
Have a listen.
Benefit us and the fans of how that'll play out the rest of the week.
So it just adds a little bit of stokes the fires nicely, and it makes for a really intriguing week's racing. Here we go. Anna van der Breggen and Anneke Langwell in the leaders' orange jerseys in the women's race for Investec Songo Specialized.
Well, I don't think Anna van der Breggen and Anneke Langwell have actually had time to talk to any of their competitors, because they left them behind very early in the stage and just continued to open that gap.
They could have stopped for a cup of tea at a wine farm if they'd wanted. They've been so dominant in this race so far. But as we see them on this final bit of the single track, closing in on the finish.
And slowly at the top.
Yeah, and although they're a long way in front, they look to just be able to go on and dominate and win probably every stage of this race. They know that a mechanical disaster is never far off in the Absa Cape Epic, and there are no backup teams in the elite women's division. So if they have something really go wrong, I mean, they could blow their whole race no matter how far in front they are.
Absolutely.
And it's a matter of making hay while the sun shines. If they're on a good day, take as many minutes as you possibly can.
Well, they could end up having a mechanical that takes them 45 minutes or an hour to repair to get going again, or limp into the finish, or literally have to walk their bike to get to the finish. So they do really need to keep opening up the gap whenever they can, and stay aggressive and never just rest on their laurels and ride along with the rest of the women's field.
We've seen in the past where one of the teams went wrong, took a wrong turn, missed a signpost.
There's a little mistake there from Anna van der Breggen, and we've questioned her technical abilities compared to Anneke Langwell. Certainly Anna's technical skills are very good, but in comparison to one of the very best in the world in Langwell, then she's starting to get found out a little bit when the pace is on, the pressure's on at the end of a long, tough day.
I think this is where the cracks start to show when you've had that long day, when you've been out there for 100, 105, 110 kilometers. Definitely takes its toll. And we've got some information from the final checkpoint. That would have been at the 91 kilometer mark. We had Investec Songo Specialized. Obviously, it's been in the lead all day. And 3 minutes 24 back, Cross Spur Racing. And 5 minutes back, Summit Fin. And 11 minutes back, Silverback Fairtree. So got a women's field really spreading out now. There'll be big gaps by the end of the day on the GC. Just following the riders in, this is Thomas Ditch wearing the blue gloves on the e-bike.
Oh yeah, we're going to have some difficulty with the images as they come in, but we'll bring you them as best we can. That's what it looked like in our last split. 3 minutes and 24, Lil and Morat, and then Stenach and Strauss a long way off Lil and Morat. I wonder if they've had an issue there, because they were with them for a significant amount of time during the day.
Well, we also saw that with some of the men's team, really in contention and in touch right up until almost 100 kilometres done, and then really blowing out in the last section of the race, whether it was mechanicals or just literally the engine running out of fuel. And it could well be the case with some of our ladies' teams. Push as hard as you can and keep up, and suddenly the lights go out.
And it happens fast, and it happens catastrophically.
So just to contextualize what the day is about for a lot of the riders today, the leaders came in at 25 past 11, and about 10 minutes after that, the back of the field, reached 37 kilometres. And that's just short of the hotspot. So they are in for a very, very long day. But that's what this Absa Cape Epic is all about. It tests the best riders in the world, as you've heard them say how hard it was. And your average rider down the back end of the field find it very, very tough indeed. Now let's go and hear from the Dimension Data Masters leaders, I think. Let's go to Laura.
Vale, sácame bien, ¿eh? Para el 20, tío. Somos generación EGB. 20. Pégale, para el 20. Para el 20. Somos de los que tenemos aún para el Messenger. We are live, I think. Okay. So, José Antonio, how was this first test for the legs? We see you are still the leaders of this master category.
Yes, actually today was the first epic day. Yesterday was like kind of a prologue or aperitif, let's say. And with Purito, for me, it was a bad aperitif, with a bad martini. You know, I didn't feel so good, so he was pushing the whole day. And luckily for him, we made also a good stage yesterday. But today was much better. My legs, they felt pretty good. And then 111 kilometers. After 6-7 kilometers, we were more or less alone doing our pace. And finally, our plan was to do no mistakes, no pushing to the limit, just to avoid mistakes, and then actually, it worked pretty good, and as a plan, it was perfect. One more day in Little Jersey.
We speak a lot about newbies here in the race. I'm a newbie, and we see like some little fights between the mountain bikers. So is this something that happens often?
Yeah. This is a terrible sport. This is it's a wild sport, you know. No. Normally mountain biking is pretty friendly. All the riders, they have a good mood between. But of course, we are talking about the race, about the competition, about the business also. So that happens. That during the race, people get in fight, but it's not our case. For our case, it was really easy. The veterans, they leave us tranquilos, and we had no fights during the peloton.
Okay, tomorrow again with the blue jersey after the stage?
We hope tomorrow we go again. And today Purito was 60 km in front, and then the rest I made it. So I think, I guess tomorrow is me the first 60, and then the rest for him. So we will see.
Let's play. We speak with you. You are the speaker, but Purito is an excellent speaker in Italian, Catalan, Spanish, but not English. So that's why we will keep talking with you this week, right?
No problem. I do a translator.
Thank you.
See you, boys.
Thank you.
Well, there we go. Purito, man, you know well, Robbie.
Rodriguez very well. We rode together as professional road cyclists. We were on the Team Katusha together, and a very accomplished road professional. Winning classics Grand Tour stages. So close to winning Grand Tours on 3 occasions. He's been on the podium, but turned his hand to mountain biking very well. And as Jose Hermida put it quite well, Purito. He's not the speaker of the team. Yes. He's fluent in Spanish, Catalan and Italian, just not in English, but he leaves it up to Hermida, who's a very good spokesperson of the team. And he also sort of brushed over that animosity that we heard about in the elite men's race.
Well, I mean, it's raised a few eyebrows because we to be honest, it doesn't happen that often in mountain biking. I mean, it's not generally associated with mountain biking, but it's fascinating to hear it come out that this is actually sometimes what goes on out there. I mean,
I think it goes on a lot more than
exactly,
you know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not often you'll have someone actually say it to the press at the finish line. That's what you don't see very much. I think the talk, the chatter, the banter, the animosity happens a lot more out on course. Just nobody talks about it because they brush it off. They say, like Hermida just says, moment. It's business. Yeah. This is a race. It's a race to be won, and you're under pressure, and there's things you don't like, and you say something. But after that, the race finishes, you leave it behind, you get on with it again the next day.
Didn't happen on the road at all, did it?
All the time.
At 70 kilometers an hour.
Yeah. So we're having a look here for our leaders on this Hemel and Aarde single track. And it's not an easy thing when they're in the forest there, but when you're on the e-bike, well, that's how easy it is. Brilliant. Popping out onto the tar road behind the race leaders in Vestic Songo Specialized. Langval and Van der Breggen, Denmark and the Netherlands. are combining supremely well so far this year. Having said that, we're only into the first full big day, so a long way to go.
Well, they're like a well-oiled machine, and this would bring them about 5 kilometres from the finish on the Waterworks climb, so really not far away now for our leading women's team. And there'd be plenty of men's teams out there today that would love to ride the same time over this course as these two ladies have. Really phenomenal.
What you said, Robbie, is very true. It is a well-oiled machine, not only out on the trails, but also behind the scenes. The Specialized Factory Racing team is a very well-oiled machine, very well organized, and great backup staff. And I think Langval is a very well-known preparer of things. She's very fastidious about her preparation, not just about her training, but also about her equipment and making sure that everything's all in a row. And we see a tiny percentage of that, but what we do see is her winning, and this is clearly the result of all of that preparation.
Oh, obviously a great exponent of the old failing to prepare is preparing to fail, and she doesn't leave anything to chance, Anneke Langval, and she's obviously guided in Anna van der Breggen very well. And something that most of this Cape Epic field will be very envious of the professionals is not just their physical capability, but the fact they can get to the finish, hand their bike over, and someone else cleans it, looks after it, tunes it and gets it ready for the next day. Someone's there to give them a massage, where a lot of our amateur riders come in, they've got to look after their own bikes, do their own mechanics, if they can't pay someone and find someone to do it, but a lot of them doing everything off their own bat, and then on top of that, sleeping in a tent, really doing it rough, and it is such an incredibly hard event.
Two very, very different events for the top 100 or so and the back 800 or so. Very, very different thing.
The most significant thing is the time that the amateurs have to recover.
Yeah,
they're often finishing at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and by that stage, all the professionals will have eaten a meal, had a shower, had a massage, had a nap, and
another meal and another shower, another massage.
Precisely, and certainly a few double espressos in between. And this is just when the guys roll in, they're tired, and the system goes a bit slower when you've got to find your shower, find your bag, and you don't quite get dressed as quickly after 110 kilometres in the saddle.
Today our last start waves were going out onto course around 8 o'clock, our last group's out. There's cut-offs throughout the day. For instance, to get through kilometre 83 at Water Point 4, if you're not there at 4:05, you're done. That's the cut-off point. They're going to be going literally all day. They will come pretty close to these cut-off times throughout today's stage. Really difficult. 2,700 metres vertical gain on this really demanding course. And we're expecting riders to be coming through up to around 6 o'clock in the evening.
Yeah, I was chatting to a few friends of mine who were riding, and they're in the last 2 batches. And they just, their mindset is we've got all day, within reason, with those cut-offs, and they set their minds to being out there for 8-9 hours.
Well, they've got 10 hours to complete the stage. That is the cut-off at the finish. Not even within 10 hours, you don't get classified as a stage finisher. You may continue in the race, but you'll no longer be in a classification. But 10 hours out on the mountain bike is an extremely long day. And the start of the next stage comes around very, very quickly.
Very quickly, yeah. You've got to fix your bikes. As we've talked about all the post-ride admin, there is a lot of it. As Langval and van der Breggen get to the summit of this Waterworks climb, and they'll be popping out onto the tar road, those 2 little sections of dirt road, and they are very close to the finish here. Van der Breggen and Langval. Superb ride by them again. No issues today, it seems. We haven't watched them all day, but as we've heard from Alan Hathley, we don't see what happens out there all the time. So you hear what the issues are, and you then understand the trauma that they go through to get themselves to the finish in good shape.
Well, fortunately, Investec Songa Specialists have stayed in good shape. It's one of the endemic things of being out in front is you don't have quite as much pressure on you, and with less pressure you're less likely to make any mistakes, and that compounds over the next few days, where if you're on the if you're a little bit on the receiving end of the punishment, it starts to add up. You see Anna van der Breggen riding second wheel at this point, just following Anneke Langval. Anneke's keenly confident of the fact that Anna van der Breggen can follow, not letting Anna set the pace. Very happy to keep things rolling along. Confident that Anna van der Breggen can match her pedal stroke for pedal stroke. Very smooth pedal stroke, Anna van der Breggen. Those legs have ridden many kilometers in anger, and no doubt as to her pedigree, certainly from her results.
5Ks to go. I had the opportunity to speak to her just a couple of days before the Absa Cape Epic, and I asked her, what, you know, she's won everything pretty much there is to win, and she said that the Strade Bianche last year, in the most atrocious conditions, mud and wind and rain and ice cold, is her most memorable win, and which you know talks to her loving the hard side of cycling, which is what she's going to get here.
I think there are those kind of riders that really absolutely flourish in the harder conditions, that just love it. They look outside in the morning and they see it's raining or it's misty, and they say, good, this is great, this means that the others are going to be demotivated.
Well, talking about crossing over to the road, it's pretty hard to put a mountain biker off with poor conditions or bad road surfaces. It's a luxury that you get to ride on sealed roads for so long for them, and only the short section. They'd much rather have longer sections of tough roads, gravel, cobbles, and they can really make the difference.
A little surprise then that Anneke Langveld finished second at Strade Bianche last week in the women's race. She's, as you know, so used to the hardness of this style of racing. It wasn't the brutal conditions of a year ago, but her first step into Women's World Tour racing found her finishing in second place. Inside 4Ks to go for Van der Breggen and Langveld. Drop into the time trial, tuck, and just roll now. Click through the gears.
Fascinating to see what kind of speed they're doing. We're looking at that e-bike speedometer, and they're getting up to 50 kilometers an hour in that section. There's a bit of a downhill stretch. Very nice, but Langveld not giving the rivals a single second, absolutely to the max, into her aero tuck position, making up every single second, not resting on the laurels at all. Langveld certainly had her fair share of bad luck at the Epic, going some very nasty punctures, those full well, and exactly there we saw there were some spectators in the road that could have ended really badly.
Yeah, the youngsters not really appreciating just how fast these riders are going, and they don't want to get in the way there, because it'll be a nasty mess. So Van der Breggen goes to the front for a little while.
We'll remember Anna Van der Breggen in the Olympic Games road race. She passed her teammate, in fact her teammate Annemiek van Vleuten, lying upside down against a very high steep curb, notably very badly injured, and was able to keep her head and continue. Her fellow countryman in the back of her mind still managed to win the race, so she has got some mental fortitude.
Yeah, she's spoken about how difficult it was for the first while after seeing that accident to get her mind right and then focus on what she had to do, which was to go on to win the Olympic gold medal.
So we'll be following Anneke Langveld's progression on the road very closely. She was fantastic at Strade Bianche. Second place, powering up that final climb, super steep, and we spoke about it earlier, the mountain biker's ability to, the torque of the legs and the ability to pedal on a rough surface is never to be underestimated. No doubt her days as a cross-country, a marathon, and of course stage racer is still very good stead on a race like that. The gravel roads, the way she pedals through those corners rather than a bit tentative, every little bit on the dirt has helped Anneke Langveld and will continue to help her in her road career. Known as one of the more powerful riders, she's been a big threat onto the others on the World Cup scene, and the new addition to the UCI World Cup is the pre-race, the Fridays race, and almost unbeaten in that is Anneke Langveld with a huge amount of power and a terrific sprint.
Well, we talk about Anneke Langveld finished second in Strade Bianche, only beaten by the great Annemiek van Vleuten. Many will remember her from the Rio Olympics. She was leading gold medal position, unassailable lead, and she crashed just at the bottom of the descent, and it was a horrible crash to see. And it was actually Anna van der Breggen, her teammate, who went on to win. But Annemiek van Vleuten, she is certainly one of the most powerful women's road cyclists there is. And no shame to finish second behind her, which Langveld did. She's not sure where she's going. She's asking for a bit of direction, but You're still going the right way, Annika. She's still not convinced.
Yeah, she isn't. They'll drop onto the tar road now. Looks back.
Maybe that's why she's so confused. She's riding on a tar road. She said, well, this is not where I'm meant to be.
Yeah. No, they're all right. They're on the right route. They might just have popped out a metre or two before the arrow directed them to, but nothing too serious. I don't think they're on the right route. So the finish is approaching very, very quickly for Van der Breggen and Langeveld. They'll just about see it and then swing off onto the dirt road, onto the dirt trail, and then back around to enter the school.
Yeah. To hear the announcer and hear the excitement on the finish line.
Bart Brench and Sabra Azevedo, leaders in the Grandmasters category.
Passing in their purple jerseys, yes.
Yep.
A new addition to this category. Bart Brench has raced in the Elite. He's won the Elite race. He won in 2005 with Roel Paulison. He's won the Masters categories multiple times and now racing in the Grandmasters. Nothing left to win except the mixed.
It'll take some convincing to get him to come and ride the mixed, I think.
Well, there's a rider that thrives on the adrenaline and the fierce racing. Another killer instinct just bursting out of him. Sure that he'll be putting his rival Boaty Booker to the sword over this week.
So we're with the leaders here in the women's race. Anna van der Breggen is just about to let Annika Langeveld go ahead of her. Hardly let her, because Langeveld had to get out the saddle and say, well, I'm going to do a bit of work on the front here. Yeah, they're not going to give a second to their rivals. Cross Spur, the closest rivals to them at the start of the day, 2 minutes and 35 seconds behind. And this has been another supreme ride by Langeveld and van der Breggen.
Also, they've got a bit of a carrot up the road. They've got a men's team that's just right ahead of them, and they'll be able to just keep an eye on them just as they turn off onto the dirt, one of the last sections of dirt before they reach the finish line. Just a few kilometers to navigate.
They've passed the cemetery here, the school on the right-hand side. The finish there, they can see it, they can hear it. Yep.
Yeah.
So they'll know.
Passing the cemetery. Let's see if Robbie can come up with another cemetery joke as we
No,
go.
I've gone through all my material.
You're a dead loss, Robbie. Okay, so they're coming through.
No. That means it's my turn to come up with one then.
This has been anything but a dead loss by these two. Quite superb and difficult to see. Yeah, well, it's still the first day. We say, there's a long way to go. Van der Breggen has shown that she has no problem with dealing with the 100k, 112k distance on a marathon stage. How will she be on Thursday?
Well, let's see. The learning curve has certainly been steep up until now, and she's been able to keep pace on that steep learning curve. And it all depends on what happens to her physically. She is slightly smaller than Annika Langeveld, where when you see these riders up close, it's notable what the size difference between them. So it means that Annika Langeveld is a more powerful rider, perhaps stronger on the flats. And the smaller riders do suffer a little bit more on the flat sections and on the really rough sections of the mountain bike races. And over a few days, it could take its toll. But they've got plenty of buffer. It's not like they've got really competitors right next to them where they have to watch out. So we're still confident that Anna van der Breggen will be able to go the distance.
Yeah, well, van der Breggen can certainly hold her own on the climbs and the physically tough sections. It's just the technical sectors she has a little bit more trouble with, but they're building such a buffer that Annika can afford to look after Anna a little bit and not force the pace and not force a mistake, importantly, from her teammate.
It's clear that the buffer technique is pretty much their tactic, is to try and really drive home the advantage to get the buffer. So when there is a technical section, there is almost an insurance policy they've got. And also, that forces their rivals to go hard on the technical sections, which could force an error.
They've closed the gap to that team ahead of them quite nicely in this last couple of kilometers as they get fueled by the adrenaline of closing in on the finish and collecting another stage win.
Yeah, they'll be top of that podium again by the looks of it, barring absolute disaster. And another few words to the cameras, some interview time, and then time to put the feet up and get a massage.
Helicopter overhead us here at the finish at Hermanus High School, as the last bit of tar section for Investec Songo Specialized, Anneke Langwell and Anna van der Breggen past the beautiful new school just above the Hermanus High School here, and they'll swing right, left and right again into the finish. Absolutely untouchable today. Investec Songo Specialized building on that lead of 2.5 minutes overnight. They will go out to somewhere near about 6 minutes by the time the finish. Here we go. The winners of stage 1 in the UCI Elite Women's category, Anneke Langwell and Anna van der Breggen of Investec Songo Specialized. Click the timers off. They've done a fantastic job, 5 hours and 19 minutes. They are very, very firm in those orange jerseys.
Absolutely world-class, world-beating performance. They are the best in the world. There's no doubt that these two are the top riders of their generation currently, especially when it comes to stage racing. Anna van der Breggen proving herself absolutely worthy of the partner choice that Anneke Langwell took. Stand and wait to see what the time gap to crossbow racing. Ariane Luti and Maya Wachowska looking to limit that damage, but at the last time check we had her at 3 minutes 24 peg back. It's unlikely she'll have made back any of that. If anything, she'll have lost time, and as Gerald said, looking at possibly up to 7 or 8 minutes on the general classification. That buffer is getting more and more ominous for any of their rivals.
So I think let's we can probably hear from them very, very shortly. Laura's down there in the finish zone. There we go. There's Laura, and these riders barely caught their breath. Let's hear from them.
Annika, we heard you saying that was tough, but you've been so strong from the beginning. How was this first stage for you?
It's very tough. Yeah. We got away, I think, quite early in the race, and we just tried to pace ourselves, and yeah, we're both looking to each other like, wow, like this is really tough. Did we go out too hard? But then I think we found a decent pace, yeah, that we could hold to the finish line.
And Anna, I'm gonna stand for you. How was it for you? It's a second stage. You're a newbie in a race, so it must be nice at least.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, it was hard today. It was long, really long. Like on the case goes so slow. Yeah, but we tried to go as fast as possible, and it was nice also. Yeah.
How are the feelings, because the race changed so much from the road cycling, so how are your feelings inside the race?
Well, it's different. Like you have to go hard from the beginning on, so it's like more than 5 hours going fast, which is hard for the body, of course, and you need to fuel all the time, which is really difficult on a bike like this. So yeah, it's really different, but really cool to do.
Extra confidence for tomorrow as well?
Yeah, first some recovery, we can need that, and then let's see what tomorrow brings.
Congratulations.
Well, the thoughts, there we go. That's a very good performance by Lutia and Wojtowska, who finished second for cross spur racing. Perfect timing, broad smile for Mariana and Maya, their first marathon stage together. And well, that is fantastic, because they've closed that gap. They've ridden really, really well over the last half of this event.
Well, let's just go back for a moment to the interview from Anneke Langwell and Anna van der Breggen, and not so much the words they used, but the body language they displayed there at the interviews. Anneke Langwell just flat out leaned up against that backdrop and out of breath and really struggling to find the words. And Anna van der Breggen said, oh, I'll just stay standing, and I'm quite happy, a big smile on her face. So although Anneke has the technical skills, it seems that she has really met the man with the hammer underway today, and Anneke seems in a lot better shape at the finish line, and We'll see how Annika recovers from that, because that was quite telling, the difference between the two.
A big surprise for us. We were all sitting really wide-eyed at what kind of a state Annika Langfall was. We haven't seen her like that. She's put herself to the sword. It's not like she had big competition nearby, and clearly very high standards, and knew that today really counted, and emptied the tank, you could say.
Still huffing and puffing. Well,
I think,
Anna still standing, smiling, quite composed.
Not quite the same rivalry that we saw from Vincini and Schurter there. They're all
well, they didn't have time to talk out on the course.
That's
because,
true, exactly.
like Annika said, they took off quite early, and they were a little bit concerned that they'd maybe gone too early, gone too hard too early, and you know, those thoughts may be entering her mind because of how she's feeling right now. She is a little bit distressed at the finish, but nonetheless got the stage win.
Well, we have to note that the time check at the 98 kilometre mark was pegged at 3:24, and at the finish it was 3:06. So they made
closed up.
Crossspur made up 20 seconds on this section. We're going to be watching.
This is Candice Lill and Adelaide Morat coming in for third. And they've also done really well here. They've managed their loss as well. The Team Summit Fin pair of Lill and Morat, they're going to take third place in the women's race today. Excellent ride by Candice Lill and Adelaide de Morat.
Another podium spot for these two.
Yep.
We had our eye on them in the beginning before the race started. We knew that they were going to have a good result. This was a partnership that was supposed to happen a year ago, and they've had all that pent-up energy. Oh yeah, we can see it's taken its toll.
Husband Darren, their former Absa Africa jersey wearer and a former road race champion of South Africa, now retired and helping and guiding Candice through her journey as a mountain bike racer. Let's go down to Laura in the winners' enclosure.
Maya, Ariane, today was a good day also for you. You arrived more or less 3 minutes after the winners. How are you feeling?
Oh, that's really, really close. I'm super happy about that. Yeah, that was a long day on the saddle, but yeah, we were working together pretty well, and we used our skills to drop those two fast girls, because they were super fast on the uphills, but we paced really well on the tarmac roads, and flat was also like our strength today. But yeah, like 30 to go, I was thinking, oh my God, is it going to end finally? But then really thanks a lot for that Hermanus single trail. It was awesome, so like, it gave us another boost of energy because of super nice endorphins and adrenaline. So yeah, we are happy. Our bikes did really well today. I'm super happy with the full suspension on this bumpy trail, so earth was really great. Just yeah, we feel super sorry for our guys who were crazy strong and they didn't have luck today, like two mechanicals, I think. Yeah.
And what are all these gels? Extra gels?
You know, you need a lot of energy for 5 hours of racing, but remember that you have to take those dusts to the finish. Don't throw it away on the single trails. We want to keep the single trails clean.
Thank you, girls.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Still reveling in those single track trails, and you know, even though it's down to business and it's high stakes racing, she still takes time to enjoy her job.
From both Van der Breggen and from Wojtowska, we've heard how long the day is. I mean, you know, that's an Absa Cape Epic day for these women. It's not cross-country races, an hour and a half. Even the road races for Anna van der Breggen, she will do 5 hours on a very, very, very long day. But this is a long, hard days, and this is the first long, hard day. Let's go back to the enclosure and hear from Candice Lill and Adelaide Morat.
Candice, Adele, how was today? We've seen a very hard battle between you.
Yeah, today it was a hard day and the race was on at the beginning, I would say, and yeah, Annika and Anna attack, and then the race was quite open because we want the podium spot, and it was a really hard fight. So everyone pushed hard and tried the best. So it was a race from the start and from start till beginning. Yeah.
Is it very early in the race to say that maybe you are the three strongest team in the race?
It was really hard in the beginning. Hey, I mean, the racing was straight from the first climb, which is basically what we expected. We tried to position ourselves really well because positioning counts when there's a lot of single track. You don't want to get stuck too far behind. I think we managed to do that quite well. Yeah, it was a crazy tough stage. I had a very dark time between 70 and 90 Ks, and Errol pushed me through, and that's what it's all about. And luckily I came through a little bit at the end.
And tomorrow, another day in the saddle.
Yeah, another day tomorrow.
Better not to think about it.
No, we relax now and
sleeping first.
Yeah, have a shower, relax, and then tomorrow it's a new day.
Thank you. Thanks.
That's Adelaide and her partner Candice, and they've gone really well today. Third place again for them. They'll be very pleased with that, actually.
Excellent performance. Yeah, really, really good. Good to see them gelling well as a team. They're good friends, and that's what it's all about. Just they're helping each other out and not running against each other, not resenting the other one's a bit weaker, and saying no. This is a part of a team. We're going to have good days and bad days, and it's going to be swings and roundabouts. And
within those days, as you heard Candice say, she had a dark phase between 70 and 90 kilometres. Adelaide helps her through that. She knows tomorrow it could be the other way around, and she's doing the work.
Exactly. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I get the impression that the ladies are a lot more in tune with each other and a lot more understanding of when one's not having such a great day, and looking after each other a lot better and maximising what they get out of their team compared to the men.
Yeah, I think that is quite often the case. Absolutely.
Isn't what I've been trying
like
to look
Neil
at.
said before, a lot of alpha males and then teaming up and
you want to race against each other.
Keep an eye on the riders who on their faces. We've been looking at who's got the dirtier face of the two. And that's often an indication as to who's been spending more time at the back and who's spent more time at the front. And certainly we saw the face of Ariane Luthi was just a little bit dustier than Maya Waszlowska's. So often a sign of how the partnership's going. But definitely high spirits all round.
Yeah, it's good to see the top three in the women's race in. Mariska Strauss and Jenny Stenehag are the next team we expect to be in at the finish for the Silverback Fair Tree combination. Mirandal, Vavis Rotveld, Sabine Spitz and Nadine Reed of the Germans appeared not to be having a particularly good day. But we'll only find out about that once they get in, and we can hear from those two riders. And then it went back to Therese Ralph, Sarah Hill in the Galileo Risk, Don Makaba ladies, Samantha Sanders, Amy McDougall in the red of the Absa African Women's Leaders jerseys, and then Sonia Looney, Catherine Williamson, a pair teaming up for the first time together at the Absa Cape Epic. Sonia doing her first race, and Catherine, well, she's done many and has won it before. But today, as the sun has now broken through the cloud, it is breaking up, and that is an indication that the back end of the field, and those riders who we've talked about are going to be spending anything up to 9-10 hours out there, are in for a very hot afternoon. Beautiful tidal pools here in Walker Bay. There's a beautiful walk all the way along the old harbour here in Hermanus. It used to be a whaling station, and thankfully no longer. It is, though, the mecca for whale watching, coastal-based whale watching. You stand on those rocks and the whales, you can hear them just off the coastline here. It's incredible. In season, of course, in winter, which is in about a month and a half's time, then the whales will start moving up here and calving, and they spend upwards of 4 or 5 months. And it is quite remarkable to see and hear them in the bay. Beautiful part of the world. Hermanus, the old harbour and the new harbour. And it's always been known as a village. There is a railway station here, in fact, in Hermanus, but there's no railway line. They built the station building, and then they decided that no, they didn't want the railway line here. They wanted to keep the sort of fishing village vibe going, so they didn't bring the railway line through here. And so the railway station's there, but there's no railway line. There's Jenny Stenehag, fourth place team in the Fair Tree Silverback team, and another one, Mariska Strauss. She's given it everything today.
Certainly has. I mean, the pictures tell it all.
Exhausted cross-country racer, but has finished second in this event with Annie Last, the British champion, and also a woman who's won a World Cup. But it's Mariska's teaming up with Jenny Stenehag, a former winner of this event who didn't race last year. Recovery, that is key for these riders now, and they've got the best part of the afternoon and the evening to recover before tomorrow's efforts, as riders come in less and less time for all of them to recover. And it'll get hotter, and it seems unfair, doesn't it? The leading riders, the fittest, the strongest, have the best conditions, the shortest time out there, and the best support. Those riders who are perhaps not as fit, well, that's perhaps their own doing, but certainly don't have the support, and the conditions just get tougher and tougher to ride in. Heat and not comfortable at all. Well, looks as though Jenny had a fall there. She's got a gash on her leg. So let's hope that's not too serious. Seemingly not too serious, but
well, that's something you've got to really look after, injuries like that, with going through these farm tracks, and you've got to really make sure that bacteria doesn't take a hold. You get an infection that can knock you out of the race. So really important to take good care of that and really clean everything out as well as you possibly can, as painful as that is.
Yeah. And the Mediclinic crew here on the Absa Cape Epic do an incredible job in keeping these riders on the bikes for as long as they possibly can, as long as they're in shape too. And I think this is the Fair Tree Luyanda Mbapele. Well done, Luyanda Mbapele, BMT and Stellenbosch, and Fair Tree combined to give them a chance to ride the Absa Cape Epic. Fantastic. Saki and Hannes Hanekom coming in from the Witzenberg Valley. Well, that's an evidence that the drought is definitely not over here in these parts in the Western Cape. That dam well below where it should be in terms of its levels. Provides water for Hermanus here. So Hamida Rodriguez leading the Dimension Data Masters ahead of Eric Decker and Martin Chelingi with Fojcik and Silva. Mitas head new race in third place on this stage.
Well, that now gives Hamida Rodriguez around a 14-minute lead overall. They beat Decker and Chelingi by 10 minutes and 56 seconds today and had around just over 3 minutes on them yesterday.
Azevedo and Brenchens ahead of Bucher and Gerber. That's no surprise. They are absolutely superb, although that Barty Bucher is as tough as they come. Portuguese and O'Leary in third place in the Grand Masters, the purple jerseys for Brenchens and Azevedo. Of course, the mixed and the Africa jerseys, we've just heard that Sam Sanders and Amy Beth McDougall are in, so they look as though they'll consolidate their hold on the women's Absa Africa jersey. Spectacular sights over Hermanus and Walker Bay, Hermanus Golf Club, and the school tucked in there. You can just keep an eye on where those red roofs are. It's right there, but look how badly burnt this mountainside was. The riders will be coming in all through the afternoon here, and know that tomorrow they have to get up and do it one more time. It's the start of the journey, the real start, as you heard from Jose Amida. Yesterday was an aperitif. This is the main course, and it's got a few courses to get through, that's for sure.
Yep, and plenty of races within the race. Our first mixed team is in, Laura and Sebastian Stark.
Yep.
Finish in 5 hours and 21 minutes. Also looking through the results of some interest in the men's category. Alex Espargo, the MotoGP rider, is also in with his partner Ibon Zugasti. 37 minutes behind our winners. That is pretty handy going for a guy who spends his year on a motorbike doing 300 plus kilometres an hour, and in between MotoGP races. He's only got about a week until the next race after this event is finished.
Yeah, I mean,
so Alex Espargo really pretty handy on the mountain bike.
Yeah,
37 minutes behind the pros.
Yeah, I mean, it's not often we get full-time pros in a different sport taking part in an event like this during their competitive careers. I mean, last year we did have the two triathletes, Seb Kinley and Ben Hoffman, but it's, mostly it's the retired guys who're looking for something else. We've a lot of rugby players.
The retired guys having a midlife crisis.
Yeah, exactly. And now to have Espargaro doing this in the middle of his year is pretty hectic.
Yeah, well, we're going to see if this is the secret to a good or a bad season, because racing a multi-day stage race takes its toll, and see how he backs up after this. Certainly, the racetrack is going to feel really smooth after riding 8 days of the Cape Epic.
Yeah, they've beaten some handy riders, Alan Gordon, Andrew Divinacher, Craig Urea. These are Oliver Munich and the like. They're all sort of good amateur riders, but they do have full-time jobs as well.
Alan Gordon is in fact he's ridden all of the Epic Legend races. He's ridden the Pioneer, he's ridden the Swiss Epic, and all in 1 year he's also ridden the Cape Epic. So they've got what we call an Epic Legend, and to beat a guy like that is no mean feat. And I think a lot of the MotoGP, a lot of the motorsports guys spent a lot of time on the bicycle.
They do. I was just going to say, if you look at motorsports across the board, I mean, they do have to be supremely fit, and a lot of those guys use the bike as a cross-training. I believe Alex Espargo lives in Andorra, which is a super mountainous area, does a lot of mountain biking there, a lot of riding on the road, and rides with some of the road pros, the current active road pros. Those guys have to keep fit and keep down to weight. It's all about the power to weight ratio on the motorbike as well. Try and stay as small as possible and fit and strong as they can.
Yeah, the lighter the better, and I think that it keeps the weight down. Doing 8 days and 624 kilometers of mountain biking will do its job, certainly.
So we're just awaiting the presentation of the stage winners and the jerseys in the women's category. Very shortly that'll take place on the field. We'll bring that to you and confirm the overall standings in the GC. In fact, we should be looking at the men's overall GC very shortly as well after today's stage. It is a beautiful day now in the Overberg. Spare a thought for those who are going to be out there for 7, 8, 9 hours. It's going to be really, really hot. So this is after stage 3. 3 minutes and 33 was the gap. Fumic and Avancini. So the battle lines have been drawn. Enrique Avancini having some very harsh, firm words to say about the on-bike persona of Nino Schurter. So clearly Schurter's got under the skin. He won't be unhappy with that of the Brazilian.
Well, it's all part of it, as Robbie was saying. It's all the psychological games. Your legs do so much, your skills can do so much, and the rest of it is a bit of a mental edge. And if you can gain a little bit of a mental edge on your competitor by just saying a few words, putting them under a bit of doubt in their minds, or cause them a bit of stress, that's just a little bit of an extra thing to dominate and to make sure that you have a little bit of an edge over your competitor.
Yeah, it was interesting on that podium spot. Yeah, as Robbie drew attention to, Enrique was very stoic, and Manuel was, you could sense, was trying to calm him down and just to bring him back down after the. Clearly, it was a very emotional outburst in the interview. He's the younger, and he's the man who could let it go. So here we go, the presentation of the stage winners on stage 1 in the women's race at the Absa Cape Epic in 2019.
At the end of stage 1, Hermanus to Hermanus, here at the Hermanus High School in the Overstrand Municipality. Third position, Team Summitfin, Candice Little, and Adelaide Moras.
So Team Summitfin third once again. And Candice and Adelaide putting a really good show on today, consolidating their position in the third place.
Second position after 111 kilometers of racing, 2,700 meters of climbing. Team Crossburn Racing, Ayana Luti, Amaya Rozhdowska.
Yeah, they'll be delighted with that. I think they had a really good second half of the day. Clawed back some of the time they'd lost halfway through. Cross Spur Racing, second once again.
New team for Ariane Luti, and a bit of rejuvenation in her career. Need to ride with a new partner, and certainly her match, if not perhaps more accomplished. Really exciting for her. But no taking anything away from these two. Absolute show of dominance, and unlikely, just given any disasters, unlikely that they'll be shipped off that podium the next couple of days.
Danish champion Anneke Bell and the World Road Race champion Anna van der Breggen winning a second day in a row here. Lutia and Wojlowska in second place, Lil and Moral in third in the women's category. Another dominant ride by Investec Songo Specialized.
Lil, the best South African in the race so far.
I just noticed in the background behind us, Alessandro Petacchi and Francesco Chicchi just crossing the line and coming in. The two Italian former road professionals. Long day out for the boys.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're very glad to be back here in Hermanus and dismount.
Well, if they're finishing before lunchtime, that means they're in pretty good condition, obviously carrying some fitness from the old days.
Yeah, but I don't think they've ever started well before breakfast time as well on a stage like today. They're not used to that, that's for sure. They're almost, this is when they would be starting normally.
Yeah, normally you'd only be around an hour into the race by now and finish at about 5 p.m. So long, hard slog for the road guys, like everybody else out there.
Up they step once more into the limelight. Langval and van der Breggen will don the race leaders' orange jerseys in the women's UCI Elite category. Any doubts about this combination having to manage to keep together? Well, today certainly showed they have what it takes here at the Absa Cape Epic. Recovery now, rest and prepare for battle on stage 2, which is a stage here that starts at Hermanus tomorrow and takes the riders all the way to Grabo. This is what it looks like tomorrow's 186 kilometers, 2,250 meters of climbing, and they will be making their way to Elgin Grabo Valley, which is a very familiar region. They will go through the Hemel and Aarde Valley and then down into over the old Gantu Pass and down into the Lawrence-Vertverglichen Valley around the side, the Helderberg Trails, beg your pardon, not the Helderberg Trails. They'll make their way up a brand new trail, in fact, up the mountainside, the Wilderkrans Tokkolosh climb, which will take them towards Botterfear, Oak Valley, and the finish. What a day for them tomorrow. Plenty of single track, 19 kilometers of single track in the 86, and that always is hard work. The Land Rover technical terrain comes at about 28 kilometers.
Well, the first thing we always look at is where is the selection going to happen? Where is the racing going to begin? Today we predicted more or less correctly that it would happen midway through the stage. And if you look at the profile, the last from 60 kilometer mark, just after the 60k mark, there's a long steady climb up, and that could be where it all happens, yeah, if the group's together at that point.
It's the Tokkolosh climb up to the old pass up there. So that's how it's transpired here today on stage 1 of the Absa Cape Epic in 2019. As you were, if you like, yellow jerseys on the shoulders of Schurter and his partner Lars Foster of Scots Tram mountain biking, and Investec Songo Specialized, Anneke Langval and Anna van der Breggen dominating once again. Robbie, thanks very much for joining us once again. Enjoy your afternoon. You go for a surf?
No, I'm going to go for a bike ride, hopefully, but I've got to find some other trails because a lot of people still coming in, completing their stage 1.
Neil, you got lots of work still to do today.
Oh yes, there's so many things to catch up on, so many of the riders to catch up on. We really rely a lot on the stories that the riders tell at the end of the day, and looking forward to seeing what the story behind the story behind the story is. Certainly we want to catch up with Sam Gaze. I want to catch up with Jaroslav Kulhavi, find out exactly what happened in that dark time that they had during the race.
Maybe Avancini will really tell us what he thinks.
Absolutely, might just open up a bit. And thanks to Laura out there doing duty and getting those views. That explosive interview from Henrique Avancini, just one of those subplots on a dramatic day at the Absa Cape Epic, which is still a long way to go to the finish as the amateurs make their way through to the finish here at Hermanus High School. Join us again tomorrow, same time, same place. We'll bring you more drama at the Absa Cape Epic. Till then, cheers.